learn with me what the hell is going on. Someone needs to get this message to the defense. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have to use brain power. Let me help out Dr. Russell here.
Many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Buchanan was so defensive and unable to throw Proctor under the bus because he loved him.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Then we add what we know about Michael Proctor. This guy is just the world's biggest. On every level that a person could be, between incompetence and stupidity, Michael Proctor wins the award for a combination of both. They killed him. Who are all the powers that be? Look at the smile on his face. That's what happened.
That's
what happened. So she doesn't actually want them to get here quickly, and that's the reason why she doesn't say there's an officer down. Meet the Bar Association of Norfolk County's Person of the Year.
I routinely do when I work with attorneys, okay? I prepare this on my own.
Oh my God.
See? You see it? It is undeniable.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Holy you guys. Build some way to feed her ego. So if you have absolutely nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe, why start crying on the stand? Hank Brennan deserves an award for being the most unlikable human being that the world has ever seen. Consciousness of guilt. I would really like somebody to do the right thing in this case.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight?
Absolutely not.
At no point do you wake up or go outside and say to somebody, why are you here? What if there was a gunman? Because you don't know. How do I know? There's 40 cops in front of my very small front yard. That's the bedroom window. Here's Sonny. Say hi, everybody. Here's my friend. Hello. Sonny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I wasn't going to record a video today, but then I stumbled upon this. Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch, Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the poor person. Oh my God. This is not good.
Now you're starting to see the blurs easier.
You see those two blurs?
Are moving around.
She absolutely knows it would not be Karen Reed's defense team that she'd have to worry about. It would be the defense who she lied to.
Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
A juror explaining why she voted to acquit Karen Reed of that second-degree murder charge for allegedly ramming her SUV into John O'Keefe during a blizzard in 2022.
A collision did not occur. I can't assess the motive to this sloppy police investigation.
And the toughest moment for her? Hearing the derogatory text messages about Reed sent by lead homicide investigator Michael Proctor just hours after he got the case.
Whatever timestamp was on that deleted wall file is the time that she did that search. And she deleted it. Let's make sure and pin it on this girl who I hope kills herself. That's a class act. You are a class act, Michael Proctor. Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge. 100% sure that Karen did not do this.
Number one is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have.
How dare they?
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
You can hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yay. You should be able to hear me now. Am I on? Can you hear me? Yes? No sound? No audio? Still muted. Oh my God. I switched. Yes, you got me. Okay. I switched computers at the last minute. That's what happened. I switched because this computer, I can see better. It's like a much bigger screen, but it's older. So like it's sensitive. And I got to tell you, StreamYard pretty much sucks completely. So I knew I was rolling the dice, but I'm here and you can hear me. So we're okay. So welcome everybody. You know the deal, right? I am Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a psychotherapist, a PhD candidate, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And we are here breaking down the Justice for John O'Keefe case. And I love seeing that open right at the end. It's just like, it's so exciting. It all comes back, right? The roar of everybody in the courtroom, and just how surreal it is. I was listening to an interview with Karen's dad, right? And just what an awesome guy William Reed is. And yeah, I mean, it's surreal. And you really get the sense from him as he was just talking about what him and his wife are going through, talking about what Karen Reed is going through, and how completely surreal, like just coming down from such an intense experience. God, I can't only imagine. It's got to be just like Karen Reed sitting on like every second, just like grasping for air, and then to just have in a second, a flash, your life back. That has got to mess with your head, I am sure. So I wish her the absolute best. And yeah, they're like a solid family. I heard somebody say, I forget who it was. I watch so much, like all of you. I see all these different interviews, and sometimes they all kind of blur together. But I remember somebody calling him America's dad. And I was like, God, I love that for him. Like he is like the dad we all would love, right? He's just this really grounded human being, Will Reed. And yeah, what a cool guy. What a wonderful guy. So yes, Karen was very lucky to have him for a father. And it was interesting. I know this is totally a tangent, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Karen, we know her brother. Her brother was very prominently, featured in and around this case, was there during the trial hearings before. We've heard from him quite a bit, but then she has a younger sister. And I'm not sure if I just missed it completely. It's very possible because I can get, tunnel vision, but I don't know anything about her little sisters, but it does put Karen as the middle child, and she's such a middle child. Like she has middle child, like just written all over. So it just, was kind of confirmation, like, oh God, she's such a middle child. I don't know what the thing is with birth order. It's sort of pseudoscience, but you know what? There is something to it because you can tell. It's sort of like Brian Albert, right? Like definitely with that. There was not even a question in my mind when I laid eyes on that man that he was the elder of, I didn't realize at the time, 7. But you just know it. You know it when you see it. And I knew it when I saw him. So welcome, everybody. A lot, I guess, going on in the post Karen Reed case kind of fallout world and the saga. And then this whole thing with this grand jury and the juror who's now being charged because she leaked information. It sounds like this is a pretty big nothing burger, but for some reason, it's a story that like everybody loves and it's everywhere and you can't avoid it. So I feel like I have to mention it. So I'm mentioning it. This is me mentioning the grand jury situation, right? And unless I miss something, which is possible, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of this grand jury situation is that a person who sat on the grand jury and heard some of the, bigger cases in Massachusetts, such as the CDL licenses and the Karen Reed case. She was like, just, I guess, what's the word? Gossiping, like texting on group threads and maybe chatting on different social media sites. Gossiping. That's the best way to say it, right? With whoever, group threads, and got caught. In particular, I think the charge that they got her on is the CDL case, that she actually, the feds actually acquired some kind of a direct text exchange with somebody who, was like, oh yeah, we were talking about this particular case. So I believe that is the story, right? Yes, it's the federal grand jury, but that there's nothing when it comes to sort of like the Karen Read case and collusion with anybody. It does not appear that that there's much there other than she was a person who sat on the grand jury for the Karen Read case. That is what it appears, right? And that sort of makes sense because it's a pretty minor charge. You would think if there was a lot to it, that there'd be more than just this one charge, and she may not even see, like I guess the inside of a jail cell or whatever. So, so there's that. That's sort of like the big news for some reason. I saw with Aidan Carney last night, that phone call. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was pretty awesome. Very funny phone call. If you didn't hear it, you should go back and watch with Turtle Boy and somebody who he was arguing with because she put up a post. I mean, it's all the like social media stuff, but somebody, I don't even remember who it was, what her name was, put up a post that implied that, I don't even know what the implication was, that Aidan Carney was encouraging this grand juror to say things. I don't know, to give up the goods, I guess, somehow indicting Turtle Boy in something. And so he called her directly and they kind of got into this odd, uncomfortable, cringy exchange on the phone. So if you haven't heard it, it's probably worth checking out. It was interesting. It was funny, for a few minutes. But the bottom line is this is pretty much a nothing story from what I can tell. And so there's that. Now, a couple other things, though, that I do have my eye on that I definitely want to mention. So there's this thing with Judge Cannone. Now, somebody help me with this, right? So is this true? I mean, this is what we are being told, right? So Judge Cannone, from what I understand, has been transferred to civil court, which just so happens to be the civil court that is taking on the Paul O'Keefe civil case. Is that true? Oh my God. Could that be true? Because somebody please tell me that's not true. No, I know, and I'll put it up so you guys can see this because, all right. So this is what it says. This is like the transfer sheet. Like when you go and you look in the system for where Judge Cannone is assigned, I guess. This is now what it says. Okay, that's weird. But there's more. And you never know. Like, I don't know if any of what I'm seeing on social media is true. How much of it is true? I mean, not this. This, I'm sure, is pretty easy to fact check. But there is a statement. So here's what I've been doing. And if you want to really, like, either work yourself into a tizzy very quickly, kind of like lose your mind, or just laugh, like really hysterical laughter, go check out is it Mass Hole Mafia? Like the Kate Peters crew, like that whole universe of people. They're like anti Karen Read and like out to get Turtle Boy. It is so hilarious. Like it could give somebody like me just fodder for like a year because there's so much craziness that goes on. And the way that they encourage the crazy, it's wild. It's so interesting. And they are just so caught up on the text stream data. Like they love it. Like that's what the O'Keefe family, that's what the whole group, the whole like anti-Karen Read, all of them, the establishment folks, they're all regurgitating like three things. One is the text stream data, the text stream data. I don't even know if anyone knows what that means, the people that are saying it. So that's, oh, she backed up. And, it's just, oh my God, right? Meanwhile, the people, look at who the credible sources that presented this text stream data to us in court. Like, need I say any more? But never mind that. That doesn't matter. Facts are unimportant here. So the text stream data. And the other thing is oh, they used to say that, Jen McCabe Googled House Long to Die in the Cold, and now nobody's saying it, and the defense didn't mention it. So, that means somehow Karen Reed is guilty. It's like, oh my God, what is going on? What is going on? So, yeah, just go on the record, and we could talk about this more later. I want to definitely hear from you guys. But I just want to go on the record as someone who's saying that I believe wholeheartedly that Jennifer McCabe, I would even go as far as to say that I know it's arrogant. I will admit that. But I know Jen McCabe Googled House Long to Die in the Cold at 2:27. So I'm not sure why anyone would say that that's just been dropped. It hasn't been dropped. I certainly haven't forgotten about it. It's just that there's so much more evidence that, first of all, acquits Karen Reed, and second of all, indicts everybody else, that piece of information just isn't that important anymore. So, but anyway, so Robin Latham sends $5 and says, "Hi, Samantha. This is my first live, and I think you're great. Thanks for your commitment, hard work, and finding justice for OJO." Thank you, Robin, for your support. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I truly do. You guys are the best, truly. So Josie Lou and Co. sends $4.99 and says the CDL license indictments was January 24. Grand juries was August 2022 to March 24. Okay, right. I knew there were several cases. So this person, interestingly, it sounds like we're getting more information. This person was on the grand jury for 2 years. That's a long time. And in that time, that person saw a lot of information. You would think that they would be getting more than just a slap on the wrist for like leaking all of this information, right? That's kind of crazy. Plus you got to have kind of balls, right? To be willing to be on a grand jury and just giving all this information away to everybody. Like, I think I would be even afraid to tell my friend, like somebody I trust. I'd be like, is it okay for me to say this to them? So I don't know. Something's a little off if you're just running around like group texting everybody you know about information you're learning being part of the grand jury. I also will tell you that for some reason, New York City loves to try to get me to be a juror. It's like their favorite activity. I was picked for a trial. I mean, it was like this, it's just, so I thought I was clear for a while because I like did the trial and then they finally settled. And so none of it mattered anyway. And like, I just keep getting jury notices, grand jury notices. And I'm at the point now, and this is going to sound terrible, where I just completely ignore them because I can't deal with it anymore. I've tried to do the right thing. I went down to the court like many times and tried to get deferments and they just don't listen. And so I just gave up. But so hopefully I'm not arrested. But yeah, it's a lot. That's a huge commitment. And I don't think I realized, because I've been getting grand jury summons, I don't think I realized that it meant that I'd be like committed for years. That's insane. Karen McCourt sends $13.99 and says, "Love your take on Ever. Kisses." Oh, look at that doggy. What a cute dog. Oh, so cute. Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah. So I don't know. There's, like I said, a lot. Josie Lou and Co. sends $9.99 and says she was transferred to Plymouth Court. So, right, of course. Yes. So the judge's brother defended Chris Albert Judge Brothers defended Chris Albert on Kohberger's case where he killed someone and fled from. What is Kohberger's case? I guess I'm conflating that with the obvious, right? The Utah serial killer guy. So I don't know. Is that his name? I mean, obviously I know about, that Chris Albert killed, was a foreign exchange student or somebody that was here from Eastern Europe in a drunk driving accident. I think he was 22 or 23. And I can never remember if it was the judge's brother or father, because I think I've heard both. And listen, I will tell you this, okay? Judge Cannone has had a lot of tragedy. Like, she's been through it. She has a lot of siblings. Her sister died young, like in 2015, I think. Then her brother he might have been this brother. I don't remember. I have to go back and look much more closely, but she had a brother who passed away recently, right after the first trial. So, I mean, she's definitely had her fair share of tragedy. And I try to be empathic, but I will tell you that she is somebody that, like, more even than Hank Brennan and Adam Lally are two people who I really just, I have such disdain for, like true disdain. But she is somebody that I like almost can't stand. Like when I hear her voice, a part of me just shuts off now because she can't hurt us anymore. Like she's okay. She's relegated to like someplace where she's not going to hurt anybody I care about, right? Theoretically. That's why when I see that now all of a sudden she's being transferred to civil court in Plymouth County, that makes me pretty nervous, right? This is a woman who I absolutely know has ties directly to DA Morrissey. They grew up together. They went to like the same high school. They both are Quincy natives, tried and true. Their families are, intertwined. There's a lot of connections there. So I have no doubt that, in my opinion, she was selected. She was the person they wanted to be on the bench for the Karen Read case. Now, here's what I wanted to read to you guys, because when I saw this, if this is true, it is so outrageous that I can't allow this to be true, but I'm going to read it anyway, just in case, because if it's true, it is unimaginable. It is so egregious. It's like unimaginable. So let me see if I can see this. I'm going to try to pull this up. I won't be able to see you guys for a minute. So now I found this as I was digging around on Reddit. So God only knows if it's true. You guys may even know better than I do if this is true. But here's what it says. Many of us are quite disappointed with what happened on Wednesday. This was after the verdict. I came to really admire everything about Beverly. She had an educated, concise, and classy methodological way of keeping out the defense witnesses and putting her thumb on the scale of justice. This is so crazy. I felt hurt for Beverly, and today I was randomly compelled to Google the clerk's office and give them a call. I got no answer at first, so I left a voicemail with my name and that I was calling to express my gratitude for the excellent work she did in court. 30 minutes later, I get a phone call from Massachusetts as my phone identified it. I answered and I hear Mitch, Beverly Cannone. I couldn't believe it. She actually called back. Oh my God. We spoke for about 5 minutes where I expressed how she did a truly excellent job, the disappointment in the outcome, and that she can't blame herself because in today's world, people prefer, this is classic, social media sensationalism over facts. She chuckled and agreed with my comment and continued a little about the case and about what she thinks she could have done differently. She said, I failed Michael Morrissey. You can hear the disappointment and hurt in her voice. She told me she knows the evidence was bad, but she also knows that she did her best to intimidate the jurors by allowing Yuri in the courtroom and putting Lieutenant Fanning in charge of their safety. Last year, she had been able to get Brian Albert, but he was so disappointed in the system that he wasn't willing to sit in during summations again. I asked her, why were all these defense experts allowed in the courtroom while the jury was present? She told me they had actually been hired by Turtle Boy, but not all jurors had been aware of that fact during the first trial. So she quickly declared a mistrial before the jury could wrongly acquit her of murder in the second degree. They appealed to the Supreme Court, but thankfully she was upheld on that. So this time she thought it's safer to just keep the experts out altogether, no matter how many voir dires she gave the prosecution. Though all that Brennan could come up with was some weird stuff with the billing department and a story about a ham sandwich, none of which touch on any of the Darbert-Lanahan factors. So it was a close call, but she only managed to keep out Easter. What is this? And why was this posted on the anti-Karen Read pages? Did somebody pick this up and think, oh, this must really have happened? it was so confusing when I saw this. I was like, what the hell is this? Where did this come from? And there's so much, right? Like there's just so much information when you go through on Reddit, particularly. And a lot of it is legitimate. A lot of it is like, there's a lot of really good information on Reddit. But then there's this kind of stuff where it's like, what is this? And you can't tell. Like there are times when I'm, like going through kind of the troll stuff and I can't tell what I'm looking at. And so I thought, you know what, let me bring this to you guys. Maybe you have some idea, like if this is somebody trying to be funny. Like I just couldn't tell. And because I saw it posted on an anti-Karen Read site, I was like, did somebody think this was true? And then like picked it up. I couldn't tell. So maybe you can tell and let me know what you think. But there's a lot more. There are some crazy things that I cannot wait to show you because it's so unbelievable. Yeah, that is exactly my sense, but somebody didn't get it, right? Because I found this on an anti-Karen Read page. So I'm like, what is this? Oh my God, it's so funny. It's so funny. Some of the stuff that you find when you are like, perusing around in the anti-Karen Read world. Unbelievable stuff. So, and I wonder, right? Like, maybe people just don't know. And they're just like throwing everything that they can find out there. That's possible. And listen, with this judge, like you don't have to do that because there's enough incriminating stuff out there with her that you don't need to, like, you don't need satire. You just need to go find the facts, right? That's the truth. No, there's no way. I wish that the person of the year was also satire. That one, unfortunately, I think is true. Yeah, really sad. So this is what's going on the anti-Karen Read ethers, right? This is another one about Hank Brennan, same kind of thing. I asked him if the McCabe's, Alberts, and Higgins were going to sue for defamation. And he did say, I think you'll be seeing about that soon. So he gave me a little hope that these people will not go down without a fight. He ended it with, thank you for the call and your kind words. I appreciate it greatly. Now, this one sounded a little bit more believable, but also, can I imagine, like, can you imagine a world where the McCabe's, Alberts, or Higgins try a defamation lawsuit? Could you imagine? Here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing I can tell you for sure about the Commonwealth. These guys, they just keep doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. And here's the problem with all this doubling down. And you're seeing it with the Turtle Boy stuff. Like at a certain point, how many times can you release 5,000, pages of discovery and then 4,000 of those pages be blank or be blacked out? How long are you going to get away with that for? Right? So at the end of the day, all of this civil stuff, the continued effort to get Turtle Boy, it's just bringing out more information. It's just more incriminating for the Commonwealth, who, by the way, actually appears to have been colluding with Kate Peters, like actually colluding. And the reasons, like, if you go read her ex comments, she's like, oh yeah, what's the big deal? I've been saying it forever. Like, it's not a secret. And the reason it's a big deal is because if you are like level-headed at all, it is, how could that possibly be true? How could the Michael Morrissey in the district attorney's office be relying on her for real information, right? How could that possibly be true? But of course it is. And that's the part, like, that's the kicker. That's the whole thing. So I don't know. I don't know. Is Brennan implying that there's going to be a defamation lawsuit? I absolutely know that will not happen because, again, I have to believe that at least Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are smart enough to not put themselves directly in the fire. I have to believe it. Although I will tell you, going through the testimony, going back through all this testimony, you guys, recently, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I mentioned, and I'm going to release it. It's coming. I mentioned that I have been analyzing Caitlin Albert. And you guys know that I put out Tristan. And the reason that I wound up focusing on Caitlin was because I was shocked at how unbelievable, at how Tristan should have been a nothing burger. Tristan should have been a nobody. What was this man so nervous about, right? Why was he so anxious? So it was Tristan and his absurdity that caused me to shift gears and look at Caitlin. And so I have been analyzing Caitlin Albert. And first, I will tell you a couple of things. I'll preview a few things. Number one, everything that this child said on the witness stand was a story. Like, it was a total fabrication. Nothing, almost nothing. I think there's like 2 or 3 small moments where she recalls something from memory. And in those instances, it sort of surprises her. Like, she's like, oh yeah, wow. I have Chilo. I have seen Turtle Boy's encounter with Tristan. I will try to find it before tonight is up so that you guys can see it if you haven't seen it. I absolutely have. And you know what? I think about that encounter. I think about it, not a lot, but a fair amount as I'm going through their statements, because there is a big lie between Caitlin and Tristan. I mean, first off, if you just compare, I'll give you a couple hints. Just compare the first 2 minutes of Tristan and Caitlin's testimony, and they're already completely different. Completely different. Okay? So they're both saying, like, they're saying things that can't be true at the same time. So Tristan's testimony, like actual testimony with a judge, right? Like taking an oath, and Caitlin's are discrepant right off the bat. Okay. The very beginning of their testimony is completely different. So they can't both be telling the truth. And that's the kind of stuff, like, you don't have to be a lie detector to be able to figure out that they're fucking lying, because it is as clear as day. So what are they lying about and why? This is the question, right? What I will tell you, I think we all have a sense. And this is something that I would really put to you guys. What do you think would be, if we're talking only now about Caitlin and Tristan, what are they lying about? What are they hiding? What do you think, based on what you know about this case, what do you think those two are trying to hide? Now, I don't want to give too much away, but I have a pretty good sense, I think, of what's going on. But man, there is some major BS going on in Caitlin's testimony. It's wild stuff. She tries so hard. It's like she's trying to be an actress, like she's playing a character of herself the whole way through. I mean, the whole thing is a performance. It's wild. It is so wild. And I've really taken my time with this one because I wanted to make sure and really be careful, right? I want to be very careful. I don't want to incriminate or say something that I don't really believe. And so I've been through this many times. And yes, right. So of course, I would agree that Chloe must be a part of the story. They are the worst liars the world has ever seen. So yeah, so it seems like the verdict is definitely out, that everybody believes that she must have been the one to take the dog home, right? Yeah, she was. I forget how to say that. Is it Malinois? She was part Malinois. And actually, Brian Albert kind of tells you on the stand, he says she was a mix. He says she was a German Shepherd mix. So I don't think that's how you say it, but Yes. The answer is yes. She is, I think, a mixed breed dog. And yeah, I mean, Caitlin had to take the dog off the premises because the dog wasn't there. Now, for those of you that haven't seen this, and I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, even if you have, it's just an amazing little kind of quick video that speaks directly to why we know for sure that Caitlin took Chloe off the premises. So here it is. Wait. All right. There it is.
Can you hear me? Oh.
Why don't somebody call 911?
I just love this video. I love it. If you haven't been to 34 Fairview, you have to go.
Can you hear me?
You have to go to 34 Fairview because it is such a small yard that the idea that you would not be able to hear what was going on the front lawn if exactly what was happening on that morning was happening. The idea that it wouldn't wake you up, the idea that you wouldn't see or hear anything, the idea that you wouldn't hear Karen screaming, oh, that it was windy that morning. It is so, there are so many unbelievable, ridiculous ludicrosies about everything that goes, like the fact, number one, that like the door wasn't locked. Like the door wasn't locked. Do you really, like, seriously, think about it though. Do you really believe that Brian Albert was the kind of guy that didn't lock his front door at night, didn't check to see if it was locked? Like, Chloe would have been, that's right. Chloe would have been going insane. Chloe would have been going insane. Everybody, the entire like neighborhood would have been hearing Chloe barking and screaming. And that is the most, of all the details, when you really think it through, this one is maybe the craziest because this was a German Shepherd. And if you're not, as you know, we all kind of have a sense, I think, that German Shepherds, they're often used in, you know, law enforcement, whatever. But if you haven't seen the interview that Melanie Little does with the guy that was going to testify in the second trial, what the hell is his name? He's the law enforcement dog trainer. I will put a link in the show notes. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it because it explains, it's not anything you don't already know, in the sense that, like, of course, you know that it's German Shepherd. Of course, its job as a breed is to defend its family, to defend its pack. But he just, as such an experienced expert in dogs and in this breed of dogs, Garrett Wing. Thank you, Josie. Yes. Garrett Wing is his name. He's amazing. He's so knowledgeable about this breed. And it's just so clear that there's no world where Chloe wouldn't have been having a nervous breakdown. Like, even if Chloe was drugged, she would have to have been shot. I mean, and I mean that. There's no way that dog is alive in that house on that morning and not barking to the point where everyone for 2 blocks can hear her. They are, they're not lying about not seeing in the P's, and that is not, wait, hold on. We the people. So here's the problem. Here's the problem, we the people, with this. This is the problem. I will tell you, I've been asking this question for a long time to myself, right? Like, for example, did Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel see John O'Keefe walk into the house? Okay. Is there a possibility that he never made it into the house and had an encounter with Brian Higgins and Brian Albert and obviously Chloe? But I will tell you that the problem with that is the statements of the people in the house. Because when you do extensive analysis on what they're saying, it's pretty universal that they're all lying in their statements about when they are asked directly, did you see John O'Keefe come into the house? All of them fail. And the question, and this is the part that we just don't know, and there's no way to know this unless I'm sitting in a room with them and really asking this, right? There's no way for me to know whether or not, if I'm sitting there, whether or not the reason that they are lying is because they know that John was like in the garage, or because he was on the property, or because somebody saw him. Does that make sense? I don't know. So I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't tell you if he was in like the small part of the house, like in the, the regular part of the house. But I will tell you that everybody that is asked is lying when they are asked. So that's the problem. Because I will tell you also, like, I don't want to place him in the house. I want him to have gotten into a fight. This is what I want. I want John to have somehow been immediately, like, taken by the hand by Brian Higgins, brought to the garage or the front of the house to have a conversation. Dog escapes the backyard, gets into a fight. Brian Albert comes out. They have their little scuffle. Somehow Colin Albert is involved. And it all happens separate from the inside of the house. That's what I want to have happen, because I'm having a hard time figuring out how all of this could happen inside the house, right? And then also have people, not fold or not give it all away. So, I don't know. I don't know. That's the truth. But I'm going to find out. I will tell you that. I'm going to find out. Okay, Bruce. So Bruce West sends $2 and says, Higgins testified he saw someone. Here's why I got interested in Caitlin. A tall, dark man that matches the description that Higgins gave could also be Tristan Albert. Now, here's what we know. Fact. Caitlin left early. She was one of the first people, if not the first person, to leave the house because she takes Chloe off site. Had to have been Caitlin, right? Because there's no other person that could have taken that dog. Like, Allie McCabe wasn't coming to get Chloe. There was no, especially not Chloe, who just was, jumping on John O'Keefe and eating his arm. So a dog in that state, as any of us could imagine, is hysterical, really worked up, needs to be calmed down, and would have to be taken off the premises with somebody it knew and trusted. And the only person in that house that leaves is Caitlin. So she could have taken the dog. That's the only person. But here's the problem with the Tristan and Caitlin story. Caitlin conveniently lies and says that she comes from her house in Easton with Tristan to the waterfall directly, and that from there, the plan was never for her to sleep over at her folks' house. It was always for Tristan to come all the way back and pick her up and take her home. Those two things are just lies. She was already at her folks' house. Tristan meets them at the waterfall. And the plan from the beginning was for Caitlin to sleep over. Okay. So the question is, did Caitlin have her car with her at the house, separate and apart from Tristan? And if so, why does Tristan come to the house at all? So this is a lot of nuanced detail. It sounds unimportant, but the reason why it's also important is because there's so much lying, you guys, so much lying in all their testimonies about the driveway and the cars in the driveway. So why is she so, and there's a couple other things. I mean, I don't want to give it all away with Caitlin now, because I'm gonna release it in the next couple of days. But there's a lot in her testimony where she's hiding stupid things that don't seem like they'd be important enough to perjure yourself over. Why perjure yourself over it? And why, right? Yes, why would she go home when Tristan was just going to work? Well, she wasn't going home. That's a total lie. I mean, she outs herself there. That is very clear. The clear indicators from what she says on the stand, when you really read through all of it, read between the lines. She wasn't planning on going home. The last stop for her when she went to 34 Fairview that night was 34 Fairview. So something changed, obviously. Something happened that made her call Tristan, allegedly, to come pick her up. So my original thought was Higgins' testimony matched Tristan. So I assumed, even though Tristan says he never came into the house when he picked her up, I assumed that it was Tristan coming to pick her up and helping her to get the dog out of the house, right? So you got to figure the dog is worked up. Caitlin calls Tristan crying, like, come, I need your help. We got to take Chloe out of here, whatever. But I, more and more, am starting to think that Caitlin had her car. So why would he have to show up at all? Like, why would Tristan have to come at all if Caitlin could have just driven herself home? And there's a lot of distancing in the testimony around drinking for her that night, right? So again, these are all, like minutia, nuances, and we could go deep down the nuanced hole. But the reason why a lot of this, and that is, and I will say, Chilo, that is kind of what I was wondering, because we've talked about this before. Right? Like, John would have been very heavy and very hard to move. So it's very possible that they needed another male. Like, they needed another strong man on site. Very, very possible. Yeah. It's a great question, Vespre. There's lots of rumors about Chloe. It seems like the defense team actually does know where Chloe is. I might have even seen that. Did somebody see that on a post, like a Reddit post somewhere, that from Karen's team, that they found her, they knew that she was okay and alive and well? Because I will tell you that I have very serious doubts about whether Chloe made it alive out of that mess. Because, these people obviously were going to go to any length to protect themselves. They're all lying, and they're not even good at it. I mean, like Colin Albert, like, just bold-faced lying with actual video evidence out in the world that completely disputes what he was telling us. I've never been in a fight. I have no proclivities for fighting. Within 24 hours, 3 videos are released of him in a fist fight. Literally, like a physical fist fight with different people. He's threatening people, obviously, right? The whatever advantage boys, right? So, and here's the thing that I've been so knee deep in their testimonies that they're lying so much. I have to tell you that they are lying with abandon, to the point where, and Adam Lally in the first trial helped them. I will tell you that, like, Adam Lally helped them to such an egregious degree that if I wanted to focus entirely on Adam Lally's involvement in this story, he looks so guilty. What it looks like, if you're focused on Lally and the judge and the DA's office, it really does look like they were not conspiring to put an innocent woman in jail, but conspiring to put who they thought was guilty without any evidence to support it in jail. That's what it looks like. And it's a really, like, an effort to the point where, like, Adam Lally helps them lie repeatedly. I'll show you one thing, because I think it's easy for me to pull up. There is a moment where literally Adam Lally tries to coach Colin to get him to say that when he walks in the house, he also saw Caitlin. It's sneaky, that it's so disgustingly sneaky, because of the way the words he uses are so carefully constructed. So he's trying to say, without saying your relative, was there some other older cousin that you saw when you walked out of the house? Because Caitlin Albert had just testified saying that she saw him when he was walking out of the house. So as to not draw too much attention to this in the middle of the trial, he doesn't hammer that point in that moment. He comes back to it later. It is disgusting. When I tell you how disgusting the crap that Lally pulls, he is a dirty dog. Like, the shit he does is gross. Really bad. Really bad. Really bad. Like some real shit, this guy. It's like, it almost, like, as much as I don't like Hank Brennan, and of course I don't like Hank Brennan, right? Who can stand Hank Brennan? But I don't feel like he was dirty the way that I now see Adam. Adam Lally is a dirty dog, the way he operates, like a snake slithering in the grass. It's creepy. So Josie Lou sends $49.99. Oh my God, thank you, Josie Lou, and says, they relinquished their rights to call it an accident. They didn't render help nor call 911, and all in cahoots. Caitlin left on Nicole's Cadillac. Caitlin left on Nicole's Cadillac and took Chloe. Tristan took Caitlin's car. Never went back to 34 Fairview. Kevin Albert. Okay, I will check. So you think that Caitlin just took her parents' car, and that Tristan came and took Caitlin's car. Yeah, I mean, or maybe Tristan had his blue Ford. Maybe Caitlin had her car the whole time, because I'm telling you, Caitlin was already at the house. How would she have gotten there without a car? Because Tristan tells us, and so does everybody else, that's not Caitlin, that Tristan met them at the waterfall for a drink and I guess food or whatever, but not that he dropped off Caitlin. So she was already at the house. And that makes me think, how would she have gotten there? She must have had a car. There's other indicators too of her lying about driving. Like, she gets really, there's lying about driving. That's the best I can say. So, no, I mean, look, these guys have incriminated themselves. That is the thing. Every time, I'll give you the greatest example of all. Every time that I try to drop Colin Albert, every single time that I think to myself, you know what? I can't see why or how Colin Albert would have been involved in this. I can't place him there. I can't think of a reason. Anytime I come to the conclusion that Colin was not involved, I go back and I watch 2 minutes of somebody's testimony, Brian Albert, Caitlin, Tristan, whoever, Colin. And I'm like, oh, more just egregious lying that is so obvious and in your face. Why would you lie about that? Not only if you're just a witness, but if you're not trying to protect Colin. Like Chris Albert. Can we talk about Chris Albert for a moment? Okay. Chris Albert allegedly has nothing to do with this. Chris Albert was friends with John, probably was the one that was the closest to him, right? I mean, of the guys, he really liked John. They were friendly. They had that, like, ball busting kind of relationship with each other. It was kind of funny, actually. And when Chris Albert is on the stand, he speaks very warmly about John. And I think it broke him a little bit. However, this is a guy who's worked in restaurants his entire life. His job is and has owned a pizza shop for 25 years. All of a sudden, he decides to run for town select committee. And oh yeah, that select committee just happens to be in charge of the police department. And when he's like directly questioned about that on the stand, he freaks out. He freaks out. It's wild. Steph Ritter sends $4.99 and says, Tristan had Caitlin's car. That's why she had to get him to come pick her up so they could take the dog away from the house. Love listening to you. Thanks, Steph. So here's my question for you. I know Tristan said he had Caitlin's car, but Caitlin was already there. So because he didn't drop her off the way she tells us. Tristan met them there. So how, and of course there could be any number of answers to this question, but could she have had her car? That's the question. Because if he met them and she was already at the house, and this is where things get really screwed up for me, because if that was the case, if she already had her car at the house, had the Jeep, the Cherokee, why does she need Tristan to come to the house at all? Now, I think Tristan was there largely because of what somebody was pointing out of what Higgins tells us. You know, Higgins saw a tall, dark guy walk in the house, tall, dark-haired guy. And if you listen carefully to Higgins' testimony, it's pretty clear that he's referencing Tristan and not John O'Keefe when he's talking about it. Like he had Tristan in his mind when he was talking about it. So, you know, obviously it's impossible to know, really. Michael Santola sends 1999 and says, rewatch the HBO doc. KR says she plucked a glass jar. I know. And a trickle of blood ran down his face. Has this been addressed? It's worth going down another rabbit hole. Thoughts? Yeah, great question. So, Michael, I have thought about this a lot. So here's the thing. She also, I was going to play this tonight. Because I died when I saw this, because this isn't easy stuff. Like, and analyzing this kind of testimony is tedious. It takes hours. It really does. Like if you want to do it the right way, right? If I want to do it a half-ass, that's fine. But then I can't say it's reliable. And I'm more of a scientist. So for me, I'm not going to put my stamp on something unless I believe what I'm saying, right? And so I'm going to take my time and labor over it, not just throw something together. And it takes time and study and careful, like rigorous, going back through the language, listening, watching, listening, watching, listening, watching, even sometimes switching screens so that I can see someone's face better. It changes how I experience what they're saying. And then it changes everything. Like I noticed, and this is just an example, Jen McCabe, like she's so clearly lying in this moment that I'm thinking of, but her eyes are closed. And I just happened to catch that because I paused it just to go do something. And I came back and her eyes were closed. And I realized like, that's a tell. That's something that, like people do when they don't want to see something, when they're lying, when they are saying something, it's a way to like protect themselves from the lying that they're doing. And so in order to catch all of that, you have to really pay close attention. And I've been through when Karen is talking about, okay, so, and there's another thing. The moment that Karen is talking about, a couple of things. She would have been experiencing a firsthand trauma during that moment, which is a whole nother discussion. It's like time does weird things, right? So it sort of slows down and you remember certain things, like you kind of almost like you zoom in and blow up these certain moments, like they're crystal clear in your mind, but then other things you just completely forget and skip over, right? She tells us that John took her glass. Remember how she was carrying the glass around with her from CF McCarthy's? Like, I think all of the different testimonies tell us, like Chris and Julie Albert were like, oh yeah, Karen pulled a glass out of her coat when she walked into the waterfall. And we thought that was funny. And we said, you're crazy, whatever. So that glass filled with vodka, when John gets out of the car to go into the house, he takes it with him. And so my guess is that when whatever happened, he was either holding the glass, like when he was fighting, when the dog jumped up on him and it broke and then he fell on it, in it, by it, whatever. And then when they moved him to the outside, he got dragged. It would have that's kind of how he ended up, right? Something along those lines, that would have been kind of how it happened, either in the fight itself, when the dog jumps and the glass breaks. It could have also been something they did after the fact. I doubt it, though. My guess is that whenever whatever went down happened, he was holding the glass. That would be my guess. Because, yeah, as soon as I heard her say that, I immediately tried to figure out what it could be. And again, I'm also aware the only way for me to know 100% would be to sit down with Karen Reed and do like an extensive EMDR session where she is able to work with, a trained professional to remember in very clear detail exactly what happened play by play. That's the only way that we're going to know from her memory exactly what happened to John O'Keefe from what she saw. Now, there is a way to do that. I mean, she was, I believe, in a brownout that night, like when he would have went into the house. But I will also tell you, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but all of the language that she uses, the Commonwealth has tried to tell us they were fighting before he leaves the car. Well, the problem with that is that every time Karen talks about that period of time, she uses very like connected language. She talks about we, like she's very, the way she's thinking when she's just naturally speaking about it is not contentious. Like he just, she didn't feel comfortable going in because it didn't look like an inviting place. The lights weren't on. It looked dark. She wasn't sure she was welcome in. So he said, I'll go in and figure it out. Right. And it was weird right away. Now, because of what happened in Aruba, she immediately, thought she got abandoned, which is like, Karen Reed's biggest fear, because that's, part of her personality and character, which is why they were fighting all the time anyway, which is why Brian Higgins was in the picture to begin with. So I think that the glass shard probably does come from that vodka glass. How it gets there exactly could have been any number of ways. But I will also say it doesn't have to be from that glass. It could have been from a beer bottle. Could have been from, a whiskey soda that Brian Higgins had. Could have been from anything, right? So it's a good question. And it's funny because, and I think I'm going to show it. So one of the things that I found as I was going through Mass Hole Mafia or whatever, all of the anti-Karen Reed people stuff, was this like alleged lie detector video. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what their story is, but I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is somebody saying that they're doing lie detecting and behavioral analysis, and they're saying that Karen Reed is guilty. So let's see what they're saying. Well, I mean, wow. I mean, it was like, part of me really wants you guys to see it because it is so bad. It is so egregious. It is so laughable. I can't believe that somebody even took the time to put it together, but I guess I'm sure, I guess it got them attention. I don't know. Bruce West sent $10 and says, Colin said he and his parents crossed paths as he went out the side door by the garage. Everyone else said they saw him. Yeah, that's right. So Colin said that he saw not his parents, but he saw his aunt and uncle. So Colin says as he's leaving 34 Fairview, he goes out the side door. And you know what? Colin would say that. You know why? Because that was the door everybody used. That would have been the door Colin would have used. Of course, that would have been the door. There's no question in Colin's mind when he tells us that. Everybody used that door. The only person that didn't use that door was the mother, was Nicole, because she wanted, to be able to walk through the more formal part of the house, the front door, right? Because she says you could take your shoes off and you can't do that if you go in the family room. She always wanted everybody to come through the front, but they didn't do it, right? Because it was just faster, easier, closer to go in the family room. And so, of course, that's the door Colin said he was going to come out. Of course. It was so obvious. Why would anybody say that they went through the front and saw him coming out that way? Colin Albert would have never gone out the front door. So it's absurd on many levels that they even insinuated that. And why would Nicole and Caitlin both stick to that story? I have no idea. Why wouldn't you speak to Colin about it before? That's the other thing. You didn't try to coordinate your stories because somebody screwed up royally there, right? Somebody made a terrible mistake. It's just so obvious because they're all saying something different. Brian Albert has Colin in the kitchen, hanging out, whatever, with, Sarah Levinson. So they're all saying something different about where Colin is. And yes, Colin's story is he's going to walk out the family room. And as he's walking out, his aunt and uncle are coming in. And then he says, and this is like, it's like the greatest moment. Colin is like, yeah, my mom really wants me home, guys. So I gotta go. And you're like, oh my God, this is so bad. Like, does he really think anyone believes this? Like, he's talking about his mother is Julie Albert. Like, this is his cousin's birthday. Like, it's just, the absurdity of the way he says it. Like, he's like, I love you guys. Bye. Like, okay, Colin, might have been too much. So absurd. But when you hear from Nicole and Caitlin, they give you an equally absurd statement. Like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Isn't it supposed to be Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday? Why would you be asking Colin, what is he doing here? They both say it. It is so absurd. Oh, hey, what are you doing here? What do you think he's doing there? Like, what? I don't know. I don't know how these people sleep at night. I don't know how these people look themselves in the mirror. I don't know. Like, I guess they're just never going to leave the nest. Like, these kids are just going to all live at home forever because they can't show their faces anywhere else in the world because of how absurd anyone who spends 3 minutes looking at any of this, how absurd they all are. And this, Caitlin Albert works in the attorney general's office. She's still doing that? She works for the top police officer, law enforcement agent in the state of Massachusetts. Is that even possible? Yeah. You see, I can get freaked out about this really fast because of how unimaginable the lying is. This was the point I meant to make earlier. It's hubris. Like, it's egregious to the point of disgusting. Like, they clearly didn't think anything about lying. Like, almost like they knew that the judge was going to just sign off on it. Like, there was no pretext of having to tell the truth. That's how it feels. This group of people went in and just lied with abandon, with almost no sense that they had to tell the truth. When I tell you that Caitlin's testimony is fabricated the entire way through, there isn't more than a sentence in total that she utters that came from actual memory of recall of events that happened that night. The rest of it is contrived all the way. It's crazy. How can you do that? I mean, think about put yourself in that position. Imagine, it doesn't even matter what the case is, just any courtroom, any formal courtroom. Not even with this much attention from the world or eyes on you, just any formal courtroom. Imagine sitting on the stand and just lying. Everything you're saying is just a story, a fabrication, just total nonsense. It's just... So this reminds me something else. So apparently, and some of you probably know the Brian Walsh case much better than I do, because the only way that I have any familiarity with the Brian Walsh situation is because I went and watched the fanning. I wasn't a voir dire. I guess it was an in trial testimony. I don't remember exactly what I was looking at. That's how much I'm not familiar with the Brian Walsh case. But I know that Fanning ends up doing a lot of testifying because they went, and Buchanan does as well, because they went and they confiscated these iPads that I guess eventually, without a warrant, without a search warrant, and of course, because why use search warrants in the land of the district attorney's investigator's office? Who needs search warrants? We just take whatever we want. It's no big deal. Whatever, search warrants. Who does that? But now, because of the fact that they took these iPads, which eventually led them to very incriminating information about Brian Walsh, like literally dismembering his wife. Like that's what's on these iPads. I guess that's how they got to the information that it literally has him like dismembering his wife. And because these guys did not have a search warrant and did not have a paper trail. There's no trail to support or documents to support their testimony about what happened. I guess there was some kind of like a loose agreement. And again, some of you probably are way more familiar with this than I am. Some kind of a loose agreement between the prosecutor's office or the cops and the defense attorneys, so that it was all organized ahead of time for them to come and take one of these iPads, the kid's iPad. So there was 2 different iPads, and they ended up taking them both, I think, and they weren't supposed to, and they didn't have a search warrant, whatever it was. But once again, the cops didn't have a search warrant, and they didn't keep a paper trail. So there's no way to say if what they're saying is true. And now all of the evidence that they confiscated as a result of the iPads may not be admissible. And it's a really serious issue because without that evidence, they may not have enough to convict someone who everything is pointing at and saying that this man like dismembered his wife. It's not good. Now, I guess lucky for the DA, that group of investigators is already disbanded. None of them are there anymore. Like they're all gone. They've all been rehomed, the entire office. From what I know, the entire group is gone, right? Because Tully's gone, Fanning's gone, Buchanan is gone, DeChico is gone, obviously Proctor's gone, Kukowski is gone. They've all been sent different ways. They've all gone different places. And the thing about it is like, it's the same kind of culture that I'm talking about where like in Beverly Cannone's courtroom with Adam Lally and Hank Brennan, there's no, like, it's almost an assumption that lying is totally cool. Like there's absolutely no need to tell the truth. Who cares if you tell the truth? Lying is normal. It's totally okay. If you're an Albert or a McCabe, you could just come up here and like say anything you want, right? Who cares? Like one of my favorite moments, it's very quick. I'm going to play it. It's like 2 minutes. This in hindsight is like one of my favorite moments from the second trial because it just highlights, it typifies the egregious degree that these people are going to lie their faces off. And it is absurd in a way that is like obnoxious. It's like, God, the balls on these people. Like, who does this? Right? Like, yeah, I have it right here. So I'm gonna play it for you. Just really quick. It's just more of the same, but it's like, who does this shit? All right, let me try to hold on. Pause this. Wait. All right, let's see. Can I move this? Oop, I lost you. I lost. Now I can't see anything. Okay, hold on. Oh, no. Okay. Let me read this before we get started. Madame August Butterfly says, dog DNA in which car? Which car would be least a problem if located in a proper investigation? Did either get rid of that's a great question. That's a really good question. I think they probably both have gotten rid of those cars because they were older cars. Definitely Tristan's is gone because his was like a 2010 like old car. So I know his is gone. Hers was, let me see if I can remember. I know she says it. Hers was at 27. It's so funny that I remember this only because I was thinking about the year of my car when she said it. So I believe that she had a 2017 Jeep Cherokee. So they probably both have gotten rid of their cars by now. but I don't know how quickly it was after. It's a really good question. Such a good question. If anybody knows how quickly after either Tristan or Caitlin got rid of their cars, let us know, because that's a really good question. Okay, let me play this, because this is literally one of my favorite moments from both trials is this right here. Because how these people pull this shit off.
I had asked Karen previously when we were at the door to come with me, because I didn't know how long Matt and John were going to be in the bar, because they were in there still.
And that would have, by definition, brought Karen to 34 Fairview separate and apart from John O'Keefe if Karen had come with you.
Right. So this is the moment. So she's about to tell us, as she goes to 34 Fairview from after leaving the waterfall, what does she see when she walks into the house? That's what we're listening to here. It's just classic Jennifer McCabe.
Yes.
Miss Reed ultimately declined your invitation and did go with John. Is that right?
John ended up coming to the door, so they just went together, yes.
And finally, you walked away and went with your husband, Matt, over to 34 Fairview in your personal vehicle, correct?
Yes.
She's lying about that. I don't know why, but she's lying.
When you arrived at 34 Fairview, were you the first among the group that we've just talked about to arrive, or had others arrived before you?
Others had arrived before me.
When you walked in to 34 Fairview, where was everybody generally located? Give me a layout of the interior of the home, how you walked in, and where everybody was located, the people that were there when you walked in from the waterfall.
So I walked in through the front door. I took a right into the kitchen. And then there were people sitting around the kitchen table, Brian Albert Jr., Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, Caitlin Albert. My sister was over more towards like the counters and the sink, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room, and they were in there just talking. I think Nicole had like put up some new pictures, or maybe the sun and the Marines. They might have been looking at a picture. Vaguely have a faint memory of that.
Yeah, there it is. There's the big tell. Yeah. So she has so many BS stories in her head as she's trying to tell us what it was like at 34 Fairview as she walks in, that she can't keep straight what she's supposed to say about what Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are doing in the family room, right? So then all of a sudden, like, she's like, I think they were like looking at pictures, and then she's like, the sun in the Marines. It's like she's pulling, knowing that there are these words that she has in her head about what she was supposed to say, but in that moment, she's just like throwing them out. Like it's like a list in her head of like the songs, you know, from whatever, like the top 10 songs of the year. She's just pulling garbage and trying to put it together. And it's like she's not even trying anymore. Like she's burnt out. Jen McCabe is truly like one of the worst liars the world has ever seen. I mean, that's the thing about all this. There's such horrible liars. It is unimaginable. But that moment when I saw it on the stand, like in real time, because they make such a big deal. And I will tell you, when you have a group of people that are testifying to an event, if every single one of them says the same thing the same way, that's a lie. That's a rehearsed lie. Because even when people are all experiencing the same event, you know, we have slightly nuanced different ways of experiencing it. So you're going to hear about the same thing, but you're going to hear about it a little bit differently depending on who's talking. You're not going to get the exact same phrase. Oh, they were looking at the pictures of the sun in the Marines, right? Oh, because they have a son in the Marines, they were looking at a picture of the sun. You know, that's not how it goes. But when you listen to this group tell you, they all say the same, like same thing. And in this, we've all heard it so many times, and so has she, by the way. So for her, it's like, you know, oh shit, what am I supposed to say right now? Oh yeah, the sun in the Marines. And so it just comes out, and it's just classic Jennifer McCabe garbage. So that's one of my favorite moments. And this is a good question. So Crofty Crime Crank sends $6.99 and says Karen named Colin right away. That's right, as being one of the perps. So they are defending him the most. I don't know. I don't know how it can be a Colin and Higgy combo. Well, it's a great question. You know, I have tons of potential answers to it. Are any of them exactly what happened? You know, I think here's what we know about Colin, okay? Colin is someone who has a hair trigger temper, who is such a defended, insecure boy that all Alan Jackson had to do on the witness stand to get him to drop the like church boy like kind of deal that he was doing was like, I'm not going to do it. But if somebody came up to you on the street and they said, what does he say? You know, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm not going to do it. But if somebody came up to you on the street and said, I'm going to kick your ass or something, what would you do? Would that be a threat? And you see Colin's entire face change. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, it would, you know, you're like, oh, come on. Like, that's all that Alan Jackson had to do was just like, it wasn't even like, you know, it wasn't even hard. That's how easy it is to get Colin upset. So he did not like John O'Keefe. They did have beef because of the lawn. Now, this is funny because if you investigate Chris Albert, if you want to know everything there is to know about Colin, you got to really look very closely at Chris, because that's who Colin looks to for what to say, for how to say it, for like, that's his confidant. I think, look, if I'm psychologically analyzing it, Chris probably sees Colin as like himself as a child, right? Think about it. Chris killed somebody drinking in a drunk driving accident when he was Colin's age, or, you know, just about, actually, probably a little bit older, but close. So he probably looks at Colin and sees the same kind of young punk kid that he was. And as a result, right, feels a real obligation to try to protect him, try to keep him safe. Right. And we know Colin's falling apart, and not just because he dropped out of, you know, playing football at Bridgewater State or whatever, but because, and I think it was his sophomore or junior year. So he was like right in the middle of college and had to come home for obvious reasons. But also he's like kind of paranoid now. He stays very close to home. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not working, if he's kind of just like doing the I'm a victim thing and like staying and hanging out with his friends and smoking weed and getting drunk all the time. Like, that's kind of, in all likelihood, what Colin Albert's life is like right now. It's probably pretty small. And so what we learned from Dad is that Julie and Chris thought that John was the lawn Nazi guy. They thought that he was extremely OCD, anal retentive, obsessive about his lawn, to the point where they would use it to screw with him, like completely mess with him. And it is kind of funny. I mean, listen, if John O'Keefe was alive, it would be very funny. He's not, so it isn't. But when you are taking that horrific detail out of the equation and you think about the kind of relationship that Julie and Chris and John had, it was funny. It was cute and funny. But John didn't think that it was funny that Julie and Chris's, you know, arrogant sons, were walking through his yard, his beautiful lawn that he wanted to keep beautiful. It pissed him off, and he was fighting with Colin and Colin's probably youngest brother. So, and then from what Chris says on the stand, and I don't know how much of this is, I have to go back and look again, but from what I remember, the beef that John first had was with Colin's brother for walking through the yard as a shortcut, because they're kids. They don't, you know, what do they care about the lawn? You know, like they're like, it's the shorter way to go. We're not gonna go around just because this guy doesn't want us walking on his lawn. So they would take the shortcut. And they were kids. Colin was like 14, 15, maybe even younger. But they were neighbors for a while. So for like 5 years, Julie and Chris's sons were, trouncing whatever through John's yard, and it pissed him off. And he would yell at them, and they would yell back because Colin's a little punk. And I think he was defending his brother, his little brother. So they did have beef, John and Colin. They did have words. And Karen, according to Karen, the reason that she thought right away that it was Colin, or that Colin was involved, is because she believes that they had like vandalized, like punk kids, kind of like on Halloween, like vandalizing the house. She believed that Colin and his buddies had done that to their house. So that is all true. That all really did happen. The question, though, that I have always had, and you guys, again, you let me know what you think. Colin was such a punk and had such a reputation of being a punk, and had a relationship, like a past relationship in a negative way with John O'Keefe, to the point where he probably wouldn't have had to even do anything for them to think they needed to protect him from the accusation that he was involved. And so for a while, that was what I was thinking. For a while, because it was so obvious to me that Higgins was involved, not only because of all of the very clear evidence, like the text messages, the video before and after the incident, right? Waterfall and the police station, all of that. But also because he tells us with his testimony. But all of that aside, because Higgins is so obviously involved, it is true to me that Colin wouldn't have even had to do anything but be present for them to think they might have to protect him because of his reputation of being a punk jerk and problems he's had with John O'Keefe. So it's possible that they went into like overprotection mode, even though Colin wasn't that involved. That's possible. It's not impossible. The problem is their language. The problem is when you really analyze Colin Albert's statement, he puts himself there fighting with John. He incriminates himself. That's the problem. The problem is that no matter how much I try to let Colin Albert off the hook, every time I do, when I go back and I reevaluate a statement, pick anyone, they incriminate themselves. Or Chris Albert shows up on ABC after the verdict with the rest of the Albert McCabe clan. Why is Chris Albert, tell me, somebody explain, why Chris Albert has any business being on ABC, being interviewed for his involvement in this whole thing? Don't you just want this to go away? Would you want to keep putting your face out there? Because all they keep saying is, oh, we're being victimized, we're being tortured, right? Our lives are being, we're such victims. Leave us alone, everybody. So you keep putting your face in front of us on ABC, on 2020, on ABC morning shows. Why is Chris Albert there? That is I can't let that go. If this kid has nothing to do with it, why do they keep incriminating themselves? It's wild to me. It drives me nuts. Bella Brat for You sends $5 and says, hi, over here in SoCal. Just dropped off Gang California off in Compton. He's going to learn today. What does that mean? What does he's going to learn today mean? Somebody tell me. That's awesome. I don't spend enough time in Southern California. I should spend more time there. I go to school out in Southern California, by the way, but I never get to spend time there because when I'm there, I'm in school and all I am doing is sitting in classrooms, and it is torture. And I'm always looking outside like, wow, it looks like a beautiful day here in Southern California that I don't get to hang out in at all. It's great. It's horrible. So enjoy it, because here in New York City, it's like hell, like humid and 105 degrees. It's absolutely torture. Sharon Reeves sends $5 and says, yes, they called John Nevercracker. even in their phone contacts. That's right. And Julie Albert showed them, like she showed Karen that that's how she had John in her phone. It's listen, I will tell you, out of all the testimony that I've analyzed, and I haven't ever released it, I should, but I did go back at one point and do Chris Albert, because I wanted to know, was Colin involved? Like that was really, I get it. Like for those of you that are laboring over that question, I understand, because I've labored over that question. Was Colin involved? And Chris's testimony gives us a lot of information. But like I said, every time that I want to conclude they're just being overly protective of him because he's a punk, because he has a reputation for being fights and being in trouble, because of the never cracker, him and John had problems in the past, they incriminate themselves. They don't let me let it go. He had to be involved in some way, even if it was small. He had to be. It's just like, think about it. His father ran for the select committee, like the town select committee. Do I do that because my kid is just a punk kid that I'm just worried has a bad reputation? And that, come on, there's no threat right now. Who's going to come after them besides the federal government? Who in local government is going to come after Colin Albert in relationship to this? Right? Like, is there really any real threat to them? Not really. So why go to such great lengths to protect Colin if he has no involvement in this, but just a bad reputation? It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Welcome, Silver Swag. Welcome. I am super psyched that you are a new member. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, here it is. Oh, okay. Bella rap for you. I laugh out loud. Sorry, Colin Albert. Oh, right. Like the bang bang. That's what you were saying. Like bang bang. I get it now. Because I was like, wait, I'm totally lost. Yes, you're right. That's hilarious. Yes. Right. Oh my God. Colin. Poor Colin. Could you imagine Colin in like a Compton? Colin would be like standing behind his dad with his hood up. And by the way, that's what I mean. Like, it's hard not to almost feel bad for him, because I know that Colin Albert is having a really hard time right now. Like, I know he is. I know that this kid is like, he like walks around. We saw Colin. So, I've been to Canton twice in my life. And of the 2 times, just so happened that Colin was there. And my sister saw him. He wears like hooded sweatshirt, matching sweatshirt and pants sets, and like walks around with like his hood up. So like nobody can see him. It's just, oh my God. I can't imagine though. I mean, to be honestly, seriously, can you imagine being 22 years old and this is your life? Like, you have people on YouTube looking to try to, indict you in the murder of a police officer. It can't feel good. I'm sure he's like beyond paranoid at this point. Somebody, maybe rehab might be a good idea. That's would be my recommendation for all these people. Clearly, I don't care whoever we're talking about. Everybody here needs to give alcohol a rest, maybe time to do some soul searching, some inside work. because this is bad. I don't know if I even have ever explained this carefully, or like what the consequences are. If you are not a sociopath, M169 sends $5 and says they wouldn't close ranks like this just for Higgins. They are holding this over Brian Higgins' head. Yeah, no, absolutely right. That's another. Thank you for saying that, because yeah, that's the other like obvious point. And what I always think there is Brian Albert must hold himself accountable, even if it was just because of Chloe. He must hold himself. Like, even if it was only, and I'm not saying it is, I don't know that for sure. Brian Albert is the ringleader of whatever cover up is going on. I mean, these guys, this is all Brian Albert's doing in my mind. So he's the most guilty of orchestrating any kind of cover up. I don't even like using those words because most people, like, I still hear it to this day. I was looking at one of the juror interviews on TMZ, and the host, whose name I don't even remember, but you guys all know who I'm talking about. He's like the TMZ guy. He is talking about, oh, the cover up, and everybody thinks that there's, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people in the house that actually know what happened to John O'Keefe. Those guys, that very small group, the Alberts and the McCabe's, that's really what we're talking about, right? He's the godfather of that little group. So is it possible that he just holds himself responsible? I mean, maybe, but I know Brian Albert also thinks he has a role to play in it. So that's the other part. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. That also, I mean, Colin having some involvement and the need to protect him is also why they didn't just call in Brian Higgins, like, because that's the obvious. The first question, see, two things. One, it never made sense, or it never fit for me that John O'Keefe was left out in the cold. So as soon as Dr. La Posada helped us to understand there was no hypothermia, that clarified a lot for me, because now I understood nobody in the house left John out in the cold. He was dead. Like, they knew he was dead. Everybody knew. They were probably horrified by it. They knew he was dead right away. They all knew within minutes that when he hit the ground, he was dead. That helped me to understand that it didn't have to be like evil at the level of not getting him help. Because these guys were help. They were trained first responders. Ryan Higgins tells us he was a tactical medic in the military, in the Army. Right? Brian Albert was a Marine. Like, these guys, they are first responders by definition. That's the pride that they take in who they are as human beings. Like, that's what makes Alan Jackson, by the way, a great attorney. He knows that. He tries to leverage that in his cross-examination of those guys. So to me, does that make sense? Like it is absolutely true that it's more than just Brian Higgins did it and we're just supporting him, because there's no way that he's going to put his entire family, in harm's way just to protect Brian Higgins. 100%. And they are protecting Colin 100. I mean, that goes without saying. It's beyond protection. It's absurdity. It's like bending over backwards to lie for this little schmuck kid. Really, I get it. Okay, he's their niece, their nephew, whatever, cousin, whoever, depending on who we're talking about. But still, but I think Brian Albert also had a role to play. That's the bottom line. Something, right? He had to, because you're right. Why wouldn't you try to convince? If you're Brian Albert, why wouldn't you try to? If it's just Brian Higgins who did this, why wouldn't you try to convince Brian Higgins? All right, you know what? Let's calm down. Let's think about this. Because he knew about the texts, Brian Albert. So why wouldn't you just call the police and say he attacked us? It was self-defense. Who was gonna? You think they weren't gonna believe Brian Albert and Brian Higgins in that situation? Of course they were. That's what this is all about to begin with, right? Like Michael Proctor believing Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe. So why wouldn't they have just said that? Why wouldn't they have just said, John O'Keefe came after us. It was self-defense. We got in a fight. He fell, hit his head. I don't, that's the question that plays in my mind. And the only answer the first thing that comes to mind as the answer is they were not thinking clearly, that alcohol had a big part to play. I mean, that, and I don't know, Chloe got involved. I don't know. They went into emergency mode and made a lot of really bad choices. I mean, it seems hard to imagine that you could make such bad choices, but maybe they weren't that bad of choices. They're not no one's banging down the door that we know of to put them in jail, right? So maybe the choices they made weren't bad choices because they're still free walking around. I mean, Brian Albert got to enjoy his oldest child getting married last weekend or 2 weeks ago. Good for him. Congratulations. Right? It's horrible. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. So there was something else that I wanted for you guys to take a look at. Before I do that, let me just make sure that I'm not missing anybody, because I hate if I am and if I do. Okay. So let's see. We're 11:40. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start this because I really do want you guys to take a look at some of this. Now we're not going to go too long and too long into it because it's like 40 minutes long, but I want you to see it because it's absolutely absurd. And this is the story. People ask me a lot. People often will say to me, like, will the O'Keefe family or these people, are they ever going to wake up? Are they ever going to, realize that Karen Read is innocent? And the answer to that is it's extraordinarily unlikely. Extraordinarily unlikely. And in order to understand why that is, you have to try to put on your hat of how these guys are looking at it. What are they looking at? Because that's the question for me as I'm looking at Arca. So I'm watching Arca, right? And I'm thinking, God, like, what is, Peg O'Keefe? What could she be thinking right now? Like, how are these people rationalizing what Dr. Rentschler is saying? Like, how are they making an excuse, I guess, is the best way to say it. And let's see, wait. Kay Jolliffe on Fox News article says the Albert family, former owners of the property where Reed and 2 other women found O'Keefe dead under a sheet of snow. Yes. Yeah, I know. Did you see the pictures? So the Fox article also had 2 pictures. I thought this picture of Jen McCabe was a fake. Like, I literally thought somebody had taken her head from the trial and like superimposed it on a dress because that's what it looked like. But then I was like, oh no, that's the real picture from the wedding. Because then there's also a picture of Brian Albert in like a black, tux or whatever. So Tristan is officially in the family now. Great. Good for them. And okay, so let me, yeah, it's disgusting is the best way to say it. It's just disgusting. All right. Let me see. Hold on. I want to bring up this. Can I? Oh, no, that is it. Sorry. All right. So the big data, the big thing that all of the people that believe wholeheartedly that Karen Read is guilty, the big thing that they point to, the same way that maybe you or I might say, well, there was no accident, the same way that you might hear the jurors saying, well, yeah, I mean, there was no accident. So no accident. Karen Read did not, John O'Keefe was not killed by way of a car accident. People that believe Karen Read is guilty, the big thing that they keep pointing to is the text stream, is the key cycle 1162 trigger events. Okay. So this is it. This is like the big aha, like Arca-like stuff. I don't know, like information in their world that says, but Karen Read backed up the car and she had the gas pedal at 75%. And she was going backwards. And a few seconds later, John O'Keefe's phone turns off. Now, one point I want to make about this. One point. obviously, we know that John O'Keefe kept his phone in his back pocket. And we know that John O'Keefe kept, and most men do, right? I mean, men carry their phone. They don't usually have a purse, right? Or like a bag. So they will carry their phones typically in their pockets. Fine. But John O'Keefe wasn't wearing an Apple Watch like Jennifer McCabe was. Jennifer McCabe was wearing an Apple Watch. How do we know? Because we have her, her Apple Health data. And we have both the watch data and the phone data. Okay. But we don't have John O'Keefe Apple Health data because he wasn't wearing a watch. Now, here's the question. Okay. If you put the phone down and you walk away from the phone, or the phone falls out of your pocket, you obviously could still be moving around, right? But the phone isn't somewhere else. The phone is on a table while you're sitting next to the table, and it's over there. Now, clearly, we know that John O'Keefe was not alive for very long after 12:32 on January 29th. But when we're talking about seconds or minutes, the truth is that he could have very well been alive for minutes longer in terms of when the actual event took place, right? So, because I think you can get really stuck on thinking that the phone is absolute. The phone data is absolute. And that is only true if we make the assumption, which is an assumption, that John O'Keefe had the phone on him up until his last breath, which may not be true. And it's just something to keep in mind. Okay. Now, exactly, I see some of you saying this in the chat. Judge Beverly Cannone did not allow Alessi to push on the key cycle, the trigger events, the way that we would have needed him to, in order for us to know what the story really was on the key cycle of 1162. The problem is that in the original trial, Trooper Joseph Paul, in his infinite wisdom, still loved Trooper Joseph Paul. Probably, you know what? He's still probably employed. How ironic is that? How ironic is it that Trooper Joseph Paul still probably works in the DA's office, which is amazing. Which just is like mind-boggling that guy is like in charge of anything ever at any time in any way, and like has a badge and a gun and like the whole thing. It's just beyond comprehension. But he alleged that his testing with the car began at key cycle 1164, and that turned out to very likely not be true. It turned out that key cycle 1164 could not have, or was very unlikely to have been when his testing began. But the truth is, we don't really know that. We don't know for sure. And we'll never know for sure. I mean, well, I don't know if I would say never. I will say, a lot of people have been amazing who understand this stuff, because I had asked, and people they've emailed me, they've sent me. And maybe what I'll do for our next meeting, unless something comes up between now and then, I will put that together in some kind of a format so that you guys can all see the information I've gotten about the key cycles, because it helped me so much to try to understand, because I was lost. I could not figure out why it was even being brought into the trial again. Because for me, if Trooper Paul had the car at 1164, there's no way that Karen Reed this is not Karen Reed. Karen was not driving the car at key cycle 1162. So I was really surprised to see this, so prominently featured in the second trial for that very reason. And it turned out that the answer to the question is testing probably began at key cycle 1167, which would mean that the timing of all of the events, like basically how long Karen Reed had the car idling, matches up with this particular time when she was leaving the waterfall and going to 34 Fairview and then going home. That is the reason why they think this is that moment in time. And most people, from what I can tell, that are savvy on key cycles and this type of data believe that she probably did have the vehicle at that time. But the problem is, and this is really a problem, the problem is, like, she, like, we, how do we know definitively? Number one, we'll never know definitively. And what I am gathering from all of the folks that really know this kind of data, it's impossible to, it's a new science. That's the best way to say it. It's a new science. It's the ability to pull data from all of these different sources and try to link it up in a way that makes it coherent and then able to be used in a kind of like criminal forensic setting is a new adventure, a new forte, right? One thing that would have been really incredible, and it's interesting that the defense didn't, I think Brennan brought this up, would have been to have ARCA do a full analysis of the text stream. And the fact that they didn't, number one, it makes me think, you know why they probably didn't have him do it? Because they didn't need it. Like, it wasn't necessary for what they were trying to do, right? But wouldn't it have been interesting to have Dan Wolf doing a full assessment of the text stream data? Because that's his area of expertise, is the telematic systems. So he would have been the guy that could have told us. And that's the thing. So it's not possible. So that's right, Robin. It's not possible. And I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos that I put out or that Turtle Boy had done, the video that I'd put out, or have seen when Turtle Boy did this, actually tried to drive at 24 miles an hour by 34 Fairview. He points out it's absolutely not possible. And that's the thing. It's not possible. Number one, you don't have enough time and space to get to 24 miles per hour the way that street curves right at the end of at Fairview. So if you've been in front of 34 Fairview, you maybe can't tell this from the way the pictures look, but right at that flagpole is the very subtle beginning of a curve. Like, the end of the street is a very subtle curve. So if Karen Read was driving backwards at 24 miles per hour, which, by the way, she would have to have been like a speed racer to be able to do, because it's like the car would have been so out of control at 24 miles per hour. It would have been terrifying. Like, you'd have to be a person who loves thrill seeking, or absolutely out of your mind, or a race car driver. So any of those things, which do not match what we're talking about here. But also, you would also be up on the lawn. Like, she would have been up on the lawn, 100%. Turtle Boy did try it. It is impossible. I think I might even have the video right here. Let me just quickly look and I can bring it up, because I think it's right here. Let me see if I can find it. If I can't, I'll just leave it. But, as soon as you see him trying, it is just abundantly clear that that's not what happened. Yeah, I do. I have it. It is under, I think it's under Colin, actually. I'm going to find it. So if you haven't seen this, you have to see it. You have to really dig for it. Otherwise, that's why I'm willing to try to find it for you, because otherwise it's kind of hard to find. No. I actually went and got a removable hard drive for all of the videos that I've saved now, because, they're like extremely handy to have, but video files are incredibly large. Okay. Here it is. Colin. All right, where are you? I'm gonna find it. Wait, is that it? This might be it right here. All right, let me check to see if this is it first. All right, let me check this. Okay. Can I? Two seconds. Time out. Come on. Oh, here it is. Perfect. All right. Okay, here we go. I found it. Excellent. All right. I just have to make room on my little board here for it. All right. So this is a video I'm going to show of Turtle Boy trying to drive at 24 miles an hour backwards right past 34 Fairview. And I'm so grateful to him for this video because it just immediately makes it very clear that this didn't happen as the bottom line. All right. So I'm going to add this, but I'm going to
Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Through it. Hold on. All right. There's Ryan Higgins, my sister. Hi, sister. There's Colin. Okay. Hi, Colin. Colin fighting. Those are fun. If you haven't seen the Colin fighting videos, those are interesting. Oh, poor Colin. Chris. I hope it's not that thing that's blacked out. How annoying. All right, I'm temporarily giving up. Where is it? No. It might be this video. Do you see that right there? That little missing video clip, that's probably the Turtle Boy fit driving. How annoying. Okay. Oh, it's not there. I'll find it. I will find it and I will put it in the show notes because you guys, you got to see it. It's quick, but it's so helpful because it immediately just takes your mind and says, oh, wait a minute. This claim, actually, the first time I saw it, I thought that the Commonwealth might have changed their story because it's so obvious it was impossible. It was not possible. Okay, so it wasn't possible for Karen Reed to have backed up onto the lawn at 24 miles per hour. It's not physically possible. So once you realize that it's not physically possible, because in order for her to do what they're saying, she would have ended up like basically the car would have wound up in the middle of the lawn. She would have been up on the lawn at like almost in the driveway, probably. A Turtle Boy at maximum speed is only able to get up to 17 miles per hour with, I think, 60 feet of room. Because I think he measures 60 feet, not 80, because originally the Commonwealth had said 60 feet. And he's not able to get to 24 miles per hour. He's only able to get to 17 without the car feeling like it's going so fast that you'd be driving totally out of control. And so it becomes very clear very fast. And again, the thing that you can't see from photos of 34 Fairview is that it is on a curve. So it is just 100% clear that that didn't happen. But there are other variables too, right? Like, well, okay, you might ask, why would she have had her, the pedal to the metal, so to speak? Why would she have her foot on the gas at 74%? Going in reverse. Okay. It's a great question. And unless we have Karen Read sitting here in front of us and grill her on every single second of what she was doing, how do we know she wasn't, temporarily stuck, or the car got a little bit stuck on an ice patch, right? How do we know? How do we know that maybe it didn't even feel like she was going very fast, right? Like, let's say that, have you ever been in a situation where you just aren't thinking and you put your foot on the gas a little bit too quickly and you realize, oh shit, the car kind of jerks a little bit? Maybe. I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, I see somebody saying that they're that their Facebook. Oh, she's got the video. Excellent. Can you send it to the email address that's like scrolling along the bottom of the screen? That would be amazing. Or even just a link if you found it. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing. That was my point earlier about the text stream data. This is the problem. It's an art and a science analyzing text stream data that's very new and kind of uncharted. That's kind of the point. That was one of the things that DeSogra was really there to testify about. He was kind of there saying, like, it's not 100%. It's not crystal clear about these text stream things. Okay. So we'll see if we can find it, because it would be amazing and so helpful for people to see it. But it essentially definitively says, we kind of definitively know, all right, you know what, Karen Read didn't do this. I mean, not that we don't all already know that. We all already know that. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind, clearly Karen Read was not guilty of this ever at any point, period. So that's not a question anymore, certainly not for me and most of you as well. So the question now is, right, two things. One, how do people believe that? How and why do people believe that? Right? Obviously, who did it is the other. But I think that's why people are so fascinated by the family. Like, why people are going, Sam, do you think that the family, that John's brother will ever realize that Karen didn't do this? What's scary for me, and I've said this before, but if I'm Paul O'Keefe and I've got, Brian Albert is calling me and checking up on me, Jennifer McCabe's, whatever, hanging out with my kids by a pool, whatever. It's very, very scary to imagine that Karen Read didn't do this. Very scary. I mean, I think you can't ever forget that. These guys have gone to such lengths to, I see somebody talking about the key cycle. They've gone to such great lengths to try to say that they didn't do this, that it's got to be really, really scary. It's got to be really scary if you're an O'Keefe. I think what we would be looking at, and I wondered about this. So it was interesting. I don't think this ever, I think I might have mentioned it, but during my analysis of Paul O'Keefe's interview with Christina Rex after the first trial, the very, very end, Paul talks about how he wants or wishes that he could speak to Josh Levy, the guy from the guy in charge, the federal investigator, the guy leading the feds in Massachusetts at the time. And And I always thought that was really interesting. Number one, that they hadn't already spoke, that he hadn't sat down with Josh Levy at any point, right? Because I think what would have to happen for Paul O'Keefe to shift his thinking would be the feds sitting him down with all of the evidence in front of them and saying, let me show you why we believe that Karen Read is innocent and that these folks are guilty. I think that's what it would take. And I will tell you also, I don't think that Paul O'Keefe is beyond, like, I want to be clear. I want to be sure what I'm about to say. So I'm being careful. I don't think that Paul O'Keefe couldn't be convinced. If you go back and look at the earlier conversations with Turtle Boy about Karen Read, he didn't think she had done it on purpose. He thought from the beginning that it was an accident. Then he slowly got indoctrinated into the drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And down the rabbit hole with everybody else. So I think he could have his mind changed. Could Peg O'Keefe? Would be very, very hard, because she's so invested in being angry at Karen Read. Now, her situation is different because that's a woman who just lost 2 of her children, right? So being angry at Karen Read also serves a utility for her that's really important. I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but Padlin Loon says, I think John's father didn't think Karen Read did it. So apparently John and John's father was sleeping on their couch when this happened. So his parents had separated. I don't know if they are still separated, but that they were separated at that time, which I think is really interesting. And that was interesting. That was news to me. So it seems like there was already like a rift, right? Because think of it this way, like Karen was staying with the father. So there was already a rift kind of in the family. And Karen was already on the opposite side of that rift. If there was a separation and dad is sleeping at the same house that Karen Read is living in. So it's very possible that she just didn't like her anyway, right? All things considered, was already seeing Karen as like on the other side. And then this happened. Now it's also clear that Karen didn't like the O'Keefe family. Remember what Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe also, when she's not telling just total lies, they were talking about how Karen was concerned that morning when this all happens about the kids. She kept saying, like, what about the kids? Oh my God, please make sure the kids are okay. Take care of the kids. Take care of the kids. Because for Karen, she's worried about them being raised by Peg O'Keefe. That's Karen's fear. Like, she is worried about exactly what's happening. She doesn't want them to be raised by Peg. And that's what is happening. Not only is she being raised by Peg, she's being indoctrinated into that culture, the Brian Albert culture. That's the Jennifer McCabe culture. So without the influence of any outsiders, which is what I think Karen was the most afraid of from the start. That's why she was so panicked, right? Without John. So, because you can see, like, John was I don't know. It's like John was straddling 2 worlds. You know, he was sort of like an educated guy, right? He has a master's degree in criminal justice, big time sports fan, big time athlete. So he's kind of got his foot in both worlds. He's like in law enforcement, but he's also kind of like more almost academic minded, right? So he's kind of more open-minded. That's just kind of who he was, it sounds like. So there's a rift there. And Karen definitely was more like that part of John than the other part. Right? She definitely has some of that in her too, though, right? She definitely does. I mean, she could hang with the boys. You know, you saw them all, the shots and the drinking in the bars and the whole thing. Karen could hang also. But so I think you have to, there was already a divide, and it was already like a cultural divide, like just kind of who they were as people were discrepant. But if the feds came and said, here's the definitive evidence that indicated somebody else, here's why we think Jennifer McCabe did X, Y, or Z. This is why we think Brian Higgins is the person who murdered your son. Yeah. I think she'd be the hardest one to shift. But some of the other folks in that mix could definitely. I'll tell you, the one guy in this group that is having the hardest time with it is John Jackson. Of this group of people, he is having a hell of a time with this because he thinks of himself as this very logical, reasonable, like a smart guy who can be rational, and he's a rational person, and it's part of his identity. So the fact that he has people, you know, walking past them and screaming, "You're brainwashed," it's freaking him out. It's really, really hard for him. And again, I think that's why there are people in that group that could be swayed. It won't be easy. It would be like a definite come to Jesus tough moment, but mostly because of the fact that it would mean the people that they have been, you know, hanging out with, exchanging, you know, having drinks with, at the VFW with, down the street from the courthouse, those folks are the people that did it. Crazy. Holy crap. So, all right, let me see. Let me check the email because someone was sending me the video. Let me just see if I can pull it right up. I have so many email addresses that Google wouldn't let me use anymore. That's why I had to use a Yahoo address. How funny is that? Okay. Did that not work? Is that what happened? Did somebody try to send me something and it didn't come through? Hold on. I'm double checking just to make sure because I want to make sure that that. Yes, that's right. Because that's written. Hold on. Hold on. I'm switching this. It's written wrong. Hold on. Coming back. All right. Creating a new one. New email. Here we go. Much easier, by the way. There we go. Okay. There it is. All right. New email. There you go. Okay. We set that up. Now, at least we have the right email scrolling. That's helpful. Oh, what a disaster. Okay. So, ooh, what is this? I see you. I'm trying to click on this. I'm coming. Okay, here we go. Roxby sends $9.99 and says, neural CURN at level 1 trauma in New York, 90% subarachnoid hemorrhages. Families attempt to explain, reconcile trauma, tragedy, Olympic levels of implacable denial, delusion. What are we talking about right now? Level 1, trauma in New York City, points 90%, zero record hemorrhages, families' attempts to explain and reconcile trauma, tragedy, Olympic levels of implausible, deniable delusion. I have no idea what this is. If someone could explain it to me, that would be awesome. I think what's throwing me off here is New York. Let me ask a question. This is a completely unrelated question. I'm curious. I just want to gauge your question, what you think about this. So I had an idea. Now, I am not generally a conspiracy person in any way, but I'm curious about people and personalities. So I was thinking about doing a video analysis of if I could find some kind of interview or some kind of more comprehensive depiction, whether it's video, audio interview, something of Jeffrey Epstein. Is that something that you guys would want to see? Like an analysis of who he was as a person. I don't know why, by the way, Roxby, this just thought made me think of Jeffrey Epstein because I saw New York trauma. I don't know why. I'm sorry if I didn't mean to do that. But because here's my thinking. So this guy, now I'm not bringing up politics in any way right now. I am simply a curious human being. And so I thought, you know what? I wonder if is this guy truly a narcissist? Like, who is this guy? Right? What is this guy's deal? So I went on a hunt to try to figure out who he was. Well, it turns out that he intentionally never did any videos. He never did any audio. He never did any videos, but that he was working with Steve Bannon. I know this is going to sound delusional, but I'm telling you, this is actually a true story. He was working with Bannon to try to prepare him for a PR campaign right before he died. Like, I mean, days before he died. So it's interesting. But that's why, if you haven't been able to find anything about him, or yes, Denise, I think he was too. And that is the only reason why I got involved. That's the only reason why of course, right? Because I don't want to get into the political. I mean, all of that he's clearly not a good man, right? So this is not me like advocating for him as a person, but it's a murder mystery, right? So that's why I'm asking, was just to gauge your opinion. I figured, you know what, if I find enough about him, I could do like a one-off video and throw it out there. People can watch it. They don't have to. He clearly must be a narcissist simply for two reasons. Number one, it also turns out, by the way, again, I don't care your politics, whether you like or don't like Donald Trump, but they were really close friends for like 15 years. It's not a secret, you know, it's a known fact, but it's interesting to me because I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to have two guys that are both probably pretty narcissistic? Can they even be friends? Like, these are the things that I think about because I'm always thinking, right, narcissistic and we're thinking about these kinds of, you know, how do two narcissists, like almost like it thinks we're moving towards a bad joke here. But the truth is, you know how two narcissists end their relationship over a home that they were fighting over buying. Okay, so I'm looking to see, hold on. Okay, now all of a sudden all the emails are coming in, you guys. Yes, their relationship, by the way, in case you care, ended Epstein and Trump over Trump went and took a house that he was trying to buy from him. So that ended the relationship, and then they were not friends anymore. But yes, I suspect he was a narcissist all the way. I'm looking for the video right now for the. Okay. If you guys have not seen, I see some people asking also about the Boston, the video on Michael Cox. Go find it, because I did an analysis of Michael Cox. It's really quick. Watch it. That guy gives us a full confession. So if you haven't seen the video I did on him, you have to see it. It's amazing. It is Michael Cox, the Boston police commissioner, gives us a full confession. He does. It's a full confession in that 1 minute interview which you guys should be a lesson. If you are ever a public figure and you become indicted in anything that you actually did, if somebody's outing you for doing something like wrong, do not speak to the media. Just walk away. Do not, if reporters throw their microphones in your face, do not speak, because what you are going to say, you think you're confident and you can lie easily. I'm here to tell you, you will not be able to do it. Lying is much harder than you think it is. And that guy, all the arrogance in the world, he 100% thought that he was going to, oh, this will be a breeze. I'll just lie and say, I don't know who Ms. Dever is. And the second he goes to say those words, they won't come out. And he just, boy, does he dig a bigger and bigger hole with every sentence, until eventually he's telling us about how he's sitting with her because somebody gave him information that he needed to meet with her. So he meets with her and he's thinking, do you belong here, Ms. Devers, or not? Are you going to out other cops or not? Exactly. No comment. That's what you say from now on. Absolutely. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So Schur's Freedom Stitcher. I don't even know how to say that. I can't read right now. Sends $4.99 and says, have you seen M. Keepsy's Internet Arloo with Vicky Ward? No, but I will. I will look at it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not like, I get curious about human beings. And because there's so much interest in Jeffrey Epstein, I'm like, well, who the hell was this guy? Like, how did he make all this money? And because I tried to ask that question, nobody seemed to know the answer. I was like, wait a minute. Nobody knows how Jeffrey Epstein made any money? Like, what do you mean nobody knows? So then I went to try to figure out who he was. And now I have the answers to those questions, but it's not easy to find. You got to dig to find answers. It's crazy. It really is. Okay. So I am just looking to see if it was easy to find the video. Let's see. I don't know if this is it. Let me just look really quick. Oh, I see. Okay. Is it in the key cycles? I guess it is. Okay. I'm sending this to myself. All right, I'm going to pull up really quickly. Thank you for sending me this. Somebody just sent me the video so that I can easily bring it up. So we'll take a quick look at that. Let me see if I can just pull it right here. Thank you so much for sending me the video. All right. Oh my God. How much do I love Joe Paul? According to him. Okay. It's quick, so I'm trying to find it so that we don't have to do this together. All right, here we go. Okay. Let me pull it up for us. Can I just share my screen? How does that work? About those key cycles. Right? I don't know if you guys can hear me still. Can you still hear me if I... Let's see. Yeah, you can. All right. All right. So. What's up? Guess what happened? The judge, of course, shuts it down.
You took photographs of the vehicle control history, including key cycle 1167?
Correct.
And in this screenshot, we can see 4 text stream events.
Actually, can you zoom in on the key cycle?
Oh, sure.
He's such a jerk.
Because I think when I got to, scroll.
Welch's is such a jackass.
And we can go back so we can see the 4 text stream events. I just want to reestablish the foundation here. In this screenshot, we can see 4 text stream events that are associated with key cycle 1167, correct?
Correct.
But isn't it true, Dr. Welcher, that there were actually 10 text stream events associated with just that one key cycle 1167?
I know. It's bad. I know. That's
correct.
really
I gave
bad.
you the original
It's like
files.
the worst of all time. Really.
So you are aware that
really
the
bad.
Commonwealth
It's really bad.
had maintained up into your firm's engagement that.
Are you saying there's no basis for the question?
Yes,
All right,
So
I'm going to
she-
allow the question and I'll hear it.
But of course, she cuts it down.
You are aware,
of course,
that the Commonwealth has maintained up until your engagement in September of 2024 that all text stream events associated with key cycles 1164, 1165, and 1167 occurred while the Lexus was in the custody of the Massachusetts State Police at the Canton Police Department. Okay.
So the objection sustained. You need a foundation, Mr. Lessie.
Sir, as part of your work in your review of the many documents
maybe it isn't
that you referenced on your direct examination, did you?
So here's I will show you this.
Key cycle 1163.
All right, so this was
NBC News confirming with two sources tonight.
Sorry,
the
guys,
deputy director of the FBI.
It is day one.
I don't know how I just got to all of this. So somehow we got to whoever that is, MSNBC 11th hour. Hold on one second. Where did the thing go that I just had up? All right.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
There's what I wanted to show you. If you're not familiar with the whole key cycle saga, I just wanted to show you if Trooper Paul took custody of the car at key cycle 1164, key cycle 1162 would be watch.
Is key cycle 1163. When the car was driven off the tow truck and into the Sally Port.
And this was the point that the defense was trying to make, right? That Karen wouldn't have had.
And here's the car at key cycle 1162, where Trooper Paul believes the incident where Karen backed into John happened. Here's the car at key cycle 1162, making a 3-point turn, driving the car onto the tow truck bed.
So a lot of people still believe that that is true, that that's what the story is, that key cycle 1162 was the tow truck driver. There are people that absolutely 100% still believe that. And because of the fact that we don't really know, we don't have the information 100% to be able to say. But here's the thing about it, okay? Even like there's really no 100% way to know the answer to the question. Even if the judge had allowed Alessi to opine endlessly and to bring in Trooper Paul, even with all of that information, we still would be struggling to figure out whether or not Karen Reed had the car during key cycle 1162, or is it possible that, you know, maybe the Massachusetts State Police took the car somewhere else, right? There are also people that believe that when you look at the way that these videos were cut, clearly the car had already been in the garage because there's that ring of snow. When we see it in that video I just showed you, right? You see there's a ring of snow already in the garage. So some people say, well, maybe they took the car somewhere else, right? I mean, the problem with the telematics data is it's not bulletproof. It's not foolproof. There's all kinds of ways that you can kind of manipulate the information and sync it all up to make it look more likely that it was one way or the other. And obviously Joseph Paul is just such a moron that you can't even anything he says is just invalidated by anything he says, right? I mean, he's just dumber than dumb could be. So he's irrelevant. The problem is the data itself is not foolproof, period. That is my understanding of the key cycles. It's not foolproof. So you know, I think it's probably, if you think about it though, if I'm somebody who wants to believe that Karen Read is guilty based on the fact that I don't like the way she looks, right? I don't like her look. I think she's snotty and she thinks she's better than everybody, right? These are the narratives that people have that don't like Karen Read just based on the way she looks. So she probably did do it. You know, they were fighting. They were at the end of their relationship. Again, this is just total speculation, like logic jumping with almost no information, based only on assumption and knee-jerk ideas. So Karen Read looks guilty, right? And then you give me this telematics data, and it's the perfect type of data for me to then manipulate in such a way to make it, to inflate its importance and make it seem bulletproof, even though it isn't. But that's kind of like the whole point. Telematics data is manipulatable. You can sync up like this clock with this, you know, data, with this GPS information, with this app, right? With this infotainment module. And oh, look, it looks like this is what happened at this time. And I think that's kind of what makes it perfect for somebody who really wants Karen Read to be guilty. The problem with people that want Karen Read to be guilty is that John O'Keefe didn't have any injuries that would, you know, that's not what people who get into car accidents body looks like when they get into car accidents. That's the problem. And it doesn't take more than about 3 seconds of Google investigating to figure out that the injuries on John O'Keefe's body did not come from a car traveling at 24 miles per hour in reverse. This is not hard. It's not rocket science. It's not even like, it's just Google, just three minutes, Google. You have to like take the sensor off your Google thing so you can see the bloody pictures, but it's all there. So isn't hard to figure out. Yeah. So, you know, look, if you want Karen Read to be guilty, you're going to find a way to make her guilty. That's the bottom line. The problem that I have is I'm trying to let people in the house off the hook. I'm trying to say, oh, Colin Albert probably didn't do this. And anytime I do that, anytime I say, you know what, I'm going to give that person the benefit of the doubt, the very next thing I look at is so incriminating. It's so egregious. It's in your face lying. We're literally like Colin Albert says one thing. Oh, I saw my aunt and uncle on the way out and said blah, blah, blah. Then you listen to the aunt and she's like, oh yeah, I saw him, blah, 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 blah. It's a completely different story. Then you ask the uncle. He has a completely different story. Then you ask his cousin. You ask Caitlin. She has a completely different story. It's insane. It's like they do themselves no favors. Everything they say is a lie. So even when you're trying to let these people off the hook, it's impossible. Because you would literally have to overlook people perjury, like outright perjury. There's no way that all four of you can be telling the truth. There's no way. Somebody, and here's, you want to tell me that, oh, maybe they misremembered? Well, guess what? When you do a full analysis of the language, assuming that it's misremembered information, doesn't check out. Because the language is intentional. It's intentional and it's direct and it is designed to mislead when you are holding in your mind knowledge of guilt. That's the truth. That is the scientific, factual truth of the matter. Wouldn't it just be so much easier if like Karen Read did do it? Be so much, this story would be like a non-story. This wouldn't even be a discussion. We would not be here. Our lives would not have been hijacked by all of this. We could have just gone on our merry way, never even gave this another thought. You know? Oh, it would have been so much easier. So let me show you 2 seconds, just the very beginning of what I wanted to review tonight. It's way too late. I have to get up early and actually drive 3 hours tomorrow. We're absconding my child out of camp this weekend. So I have to drive up to Connecticut and then 3 hours to deep New York State to go pick her up. She's coming home a week early, unsurprising because she's a mommy's girl. So she's coming home from camp. Instead of 4 weeks, she's going to be gone 3. So I have a big trip tomorrow, but I want to show you this because this is the stuff that like people that want Karen Reid to be guilty, this is what they're like consuming for information. And it just doesn't make sense. It's really, it's shocking is what I will say. All right. So here it is. Let me take this out. I got to make room for it. All right. So we are going to take a quick look at this so you can see just how, and some of you might know who this is, definitely possible. I have no idea who this guy is. I don't know what his background is. I don't know what he does for a living. I don't know what his qualifications are to make any of this determination, but it didn't take me long to realize he doesn't have any based on what he's saying. So here we go.
In this video, I'm going to compare her different TV interviews with data. To me, things are not really adding up, and she changed her statement several times. Before I start getting into those interviews, here are a few important points to remember. Karen's car data revealed at 12:24 a.m., she and John parked at Fairview. John's phone data revealed his GPS location was never in the house. At 12:27 a.m.,
Oh my God.
Jen McCabe texted John.
Can we talk about this? Look at the way. Can we just talk about how this is being presented right now? Like, look at how this is being presented. This freaks me out when I see stuff like this because wait a minute. What? All of the information that's being presented is being presented as like facts. Like John's GPS data says he was cured. This is right. And it's like, wait. What? You mean, are you giving us a heavily, an opinion that has been speculated over, that has been argued over, labored over? This is like the Google search where you're about to tell us that with absolute certainty, that this did or didn't happen. Like, what is going on here? So right off the bat, what did we get from this guy? Is any of this going to be credible in any way? But this is like, read the title, right? Karen Reid lie detector test deep dive. That's what this person is presenting. Okay.
With a question mark, an exclamation point. And he read it 15 seconds later without replying. At 12:29 a.m., Jen called John. Phone records show he answered for 7 seconds, but Jen testified she never spoke to him after giving directions at 12:18. At 12:30 a.m., John's phone.
Because we know Jen testifying and her sworn testimony means a lot.
Disconnected from Karen's SUV Bluetooth. Between 12:31 and 56 seconds and 12:32 and 16 seconds, John took 36 steps in 20 seconds. This was the first time in the 7 minutes since parking that John took steps. At 12:32.
All right. So one thing, FYI, about steps data. This is just, my God, I could probably spend hours just picking apart this first minute of this video because of the way it's being presented. Like, this is a way that you could present information. It looks so simple. It looks so straightforward, and it's just being misrepresented, soup to nuts in every way. So the way that steps work, some of you probably know this, and there are some decent videos about the steps and what they mean and how steps are recorded on a phone. So has anybody, I don't know if you guys have taken the time. I will tell you that like math kind of freaks me out a little bit. It's not my thing. So when I try to look really like hone in on the steps data to try to figure out, could Apple have misinterpreted a fight for steps? Could it have been the car? Could it have been a hill? Could it have been, whatever? There are answers out there, but it's laborious detail, like real digging through minutia of, granular detail of how the different types of sensors and the different changes in altitude. And I mean, it's real minutia. So there's that. But the other thing about the steps is that the way that they're recorded is in segments. So steps are recorded happening over a period of time, right? And the way that my understanding of how Apple calculates steps is in chunks. So there's always going to be like a beginning and an end and like a space in between. So it's not exact. It's not like at 12:32 and 1 second, John picked up his left foot and then placed it down. And then at 12:32 and 3 seconds, he picked up his right foot. Like, that's not how the data is calculated. It does calculate, I forget the way the wordage is, but the stomp, like the slam of a foot, that is part of actually how it calculates steps. But it is not in that kind of like second by second play by play. So it's a beginning and an ending. And again, this is just totally misrepresented right off the bat in the way that this data is being presented. So right off the top, this video, which is being propagated by anti-Karen Read folks, is like the evidence that Karen Read is really guilty. Is when I tell you horse shit from the start, it's horse shit from the start, but this isn't even like, this is just like the entree. Like, this isn't even the appetizer. This is the thing before that, whatever that would be, the water that you get when you get to a table. It's this gets so bad. It's like, how could this even be? How does someone put this out there?
John looked at Jen's message stating to pull behind her car, and 3 seconds later, he locked his phone. And 7 seconds after that, John's phone stopped moving until it was found under his body near the flagpole around 6 a.m. Also at 12:32 a.m., Karen's car went in reverse up to 24 miles per hour, which is debated by experts. A minute later at 12:33, it was the first time Karen called or texted John since they arrived at Fairview.
Great question.
12:36 a.m., Karen connected to John's home Wi-Fi network. From videos I've seen online, the quickest time from Fairview to John's house was 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Finally, at 12:37 a.m., Karen left John a voicemail that said, "John, I effing hate you." Also important to remember are the 3 eyewitnesses outside Fairview. After Karen turned onto Fairview at this intersection,
this is like an exercise. It might be a fun exercise, actually. Like, how could I cherry pick all the information that I have to make Karen look as guilty as I possibly could? Bet you that would be a fun exercise. But this is the shit that people are consuming and then saying, "Oh, Karen Read did it." Like, what? Wait, what? It's really something. It's really something, because it's just so, I will say one of the things I've learned in this experience of just following Karen Read case, you kind of see both sides. You can see how, like, I've seen how the mainstream media has covered Karen Read, and it makes me irate. Like, I was going to talk about this today. I'm not going to talk about it now because we don't have time. But Forbes, did anybody see the Forbes article about where they feature Jessica Hyde? Amazing. I kind of lost it a little bit about this. Like, in the original moment when I saw that Jessica Hyde was in Forbes talking about how she decoded the Google search and how it really didn't happen, and how important they are now, how important these data analysts are, and how they're used in the forensic field, and how important. And I am losing my mind, because I absolutely know that Jessica Hyde, number one, I don't even know where to begin. Like, where do you want me to start with Jessica Hyde? But number one. Number two, she's wrong. She's just wrong. And the way that it's being presented in Forbes is like, she's the guru, and see, look, let this be a lesson to everybody about how important it is to get it right, because Jessica Hyde, her opinion is, it's crazy. And this is in Forbes magazine. And I'm like, why is the mainstream media so convinced that Karen Read is guilty, and just hellbent on not presenting even objective information correctly. It's bizarre. Does anybody have any idea what that is about? It's bizarre. Even court TV, which I mean, that's pretty mainstream. What's the deal with that? Oh, that's a great idea. Jessica Hyde. I don't know if I could stand it. I will do it though. I will do it. Jessica Hyde has such like a high opinion of herself that what I'm going to get from that video, I can tell you right now, is that she thinks that what she's saying is true. I believe Jessica Hyde believes what she's saying, but you have to think about with people like Jessica Hyde and Ian Whiffen, there is so much personal incentive. Like that's really what it is, right? It's personal incentive. Larissa Harris sends $9.99 and says, retired Sergeant Peter Murphy did a great interview on the investigation on Billy Bush. He has done a few now on Billy. Yeah, Billy's been great, by the way. They took down, oh my God, did they really? Peter Murphy is great too. For those of you that don't know Peter Murphy, he's been really great. And Billy Bush is so great. Do you know something? You guys are going to laugh at me for this. I didn't realize that Billy Bush was like the guy from the grab the women and the whatevers with Donald Trump. I did not know. My boyfriend was like, I was just telling him about an interview with Billy Bush and that I liked him. I had no idea that that's who it was. And then he's like, you know who that is, right? And had no idea, just totally didn't know. So I think it's hilarious and he's great. And I love Billy Bush and I completely trust him. But yes, Peter Murphy, that's really sad that they took down a plaque for supporting Karen. That's just really sad is what that is. That's really sad. You know, a guy dedicates his whole life to being a part of, you know, putting your law enforcement, putting your life on the line. You retire and then you take a plaque down. Like, who does that? My God. Okay. So I promise I won't torture you much longer with this, but I want you just to see a couple of the way that they are framing, because now he starts bringing in her words. And it's wild, you guys, because it is such a misrepresentation in every way, shape, and form with nothing legitimate. There's nothing legitimate about anything this person is saying. And, I don't know. I don't know how anybody like listens to this and says, oh, yeah, that's true. It's just crazy. Like, how do you, I don't know. But
pickup truck with 3 people
wait till you
on
see
the
this.
opposite side also turned onto Fairview, and they were behind her and John for approximately 5 minutes as a guest came out to talk and then returned to the party. The truck left and passed Karen's SUV and saw her in the driver's seat with the interior light on, which is usually on after somebody opens the door. But they did not see John. They never saw anyone get out of Karen's SUV the entire time they were parked behind her. Next, I'm going to play a lot of interview clips of Karen. I think it's best to watch the clips in their full context first, and then I'll analyze certain phrases. For some of these interviews, I had trouble screen recording the video part of it. So for sections where I only have the audio, I overlaid a screenshot. Here is what Karen said on Investigation Discovery.
So I'm driving and John got on the phone with Jen and he's telling me it's 34 Fairview. And we arrive at 34 Fairview. It didn't look like there was any soiree going on. It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles. And I said, John, can you make sure we're welcome? He said, I'll run in. So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder. And he walked up the driveway, and John always kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the side front door. And he opened the door and went to walk in. And I waited probably a minute and he doesn't come. And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes for me to be irritated. So I called him. I didn't want to wait for him to respond to a text and he didn't answer. He said, you've got to be kidding me. What are you doing? You just went in. I'm sitting here. Either we're welcome or we're not, but it shouldn't take you 5 minutes to determine that. And then about 10 minutes went by.
All right. So let me just say so far. Yeah, I would say I just wanted to agree. Amy, I just lost you here for a second, but I would totally agree with you that this case has, here it is. Amy Law 72. Amelia? No. Amy, how do you say that? I would just say Amy Law, but that doesn't make, I don't know. Anyway, if I'm saying it wrong, let me know. Yeah, I gotta say that this has changed the way I view mainstream media also. Now, I was already very skeptical of everything I see in mainstream media, so it wasn't like, shocking, but I definitely almost have dropped it completely. Like, it's not even a place that I travel these days because it's unbelievable how they got this wrong. Really unbelievable. And how they continue to misrepresent Karen Read. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's like, what is it? What is it that makes this case, for anyone who gives it even a second, like the time of day, for anyone who really knows anything about this, it's like, wow. If you give this more than 10 minutes attention, something is wrong. Second you hear that there's a Brian Albert, anything about who he is, and then he didn't come out of the house that morning, okay, something's wrong, period. There's nothing fits there. That didn't happen. So now you have to go to like, all right, well, what did happen? So what is it about mainstream media that they just do not want to see what the hell this is? I don't know if it's Karen Read herself. It's crazy. It's really, really bizarre. But I agree with you. It has completely changed. Any credibility that I gave to mainstream media is now gone, is the way I would say it. So this guy, just because, who is he? His name is Tom Webster. And what I want to say about this statement from Karen Read, and maybe I'll do this in a video to make it easy, because what I would love to show you is the difference between the way she is reiterating, articulating, and recounting this sequence of events versus when you listen to Caitlin Albert. I mean, what you're going to get from all these people, it's so like, I believe, it's like, I don't recall, you get all of this deflection, like there's no commitment to anything that they say, distancing everywhere, stuttering, Jen McCabe, just like, not even completing sentences, just switching like from one lie that she can remember she was supposed to say, like one story to another. And with Karen Read, that's not what you get. You just get recall. You get a person who's is basically, as the story's playing in her mind, she's telling you what she's seeing. That's the difference between a person who recalls events and is telling them to you. And you'll also notice, my boyfriend and I were listening to a mobster. I think it was Rogan. Yeah, it was like maybe a few weeks ago on Joe Rogan. He was interviewing a mobster, and that guy was telling stories about his life as it was the Donnie Brasco character. That's not his real name, but the story, Donnie Brasco. He was a Fed who infiltrated the mob, brought down a bunch of figures, but he was really like an insider. I mean, he was basically more of a mobster than he was a cop in real life, because he spent all his time with mobsters and he grew up with mobsters, whatever. So my boyfriend's listening to this and he goes, "This can't be true. This is all bullshit." Like, he didn't want to listen anymore. And I was like, no. This is not bullshit. This is 100% true. Everything he's saying is true. Well, how do you know? Because once you know what it sounds like, the difference between an honest person recounting events and a lying person trying to fabricate a story, they are so distinctly different, and it's so easy to tell. It's crazy. It's crazy. It is so easy to tell. It takes some training. Like, you have to kind of train your brain to be able to look for those certain things. But once you know what they are, it's so easy. It is so clear. And it's like, holy crap. So when I hear Karen Read telling this sequence of events to us, I want to know, like, okay, Tom, whatever this guy's name is, where's the lie? Like, clearly this is not a trained person who knows anything about anything, is really what you learn from the first minute of his video, clearly has no idea what he's talking about. Right? Like no ability to decipher anything and has no credibility or reasoning at all for what he's saying, other than she just seems guilty to me. And so I'm going to play a clip of what she's saying and then frame it as though she's guilty of something. That's what this is. But for you guys who do listen to testimony and have listened to Jennifer McCabe go on and on during her cross-examination, where it's just lie after lie after lie, or where when you do see Tristan, or when you're going to see the Caitlin Albert video that I put out, and then compare it to Karen Read, they are not in the same ballpark, and it is so clear. And you know what? Every one of us have a natural instinct. Like if you go back and you watch the Commissioner Cox 1 minute video, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds. Tell me that your radar doesn't go off all over the place. You may not know why. You're listening to it and you're like, what is this guy saying? You may not know why, or like be able to put your finger on exactly what he's saying that isn't true. But boy, does your radar go off. Like it took me half a second of listening to him and looking at his face as he's responding to this. He doesn't, oh my God, the Commissioner Cox is a great example. And that's actually follow up to the story. When my boyfriend said that guy's lying, I immediately got out the Commissioner Cox video and I sent it to him and I said, no. If you want to know what lying looks like, it's this. That is the most clear-cut example of lying I've ever heard. It is the most egregious, like stumbling, fumbling, lying mess of a response. So if you want to know what honesty looks like, Karen Read's doing a great job right now of explaining what it looks like when somebody's recalling to you what happened in their mind. Commissioner Cox is doing a great job of trying to fabricate some reason why a denial of some kind, why it would be that I guess Ms. Dever somehow misunderstood his intentions. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. It's crazy. If you want to know what lying looks like, yeah, go watch Commissioner Cox. That's lying. That's the clearest case of lying you'll ever see from anyone ever. But this isn't that. So we'll just wrap it up. Let's see what the last, we'll let Mr. Webster finish his thought here.
And I left and I was not happy. Little did I know, John was not getting my phone calls. And then that was it. The last I ever talked to him was when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house. It didn't look like there was any
Patrick.
soiree going on. It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles.
The Alberts testified that they usually had 3 to 4 cars in their driveway. Plus, Karen had likely seen the McCabe's and Brian Higgins' cars previously, and there was a pickup truck behind her with its lights on for several minutes.
And I said, John, can you make sure we're welcome? He said, I'll run in.
While leaving the waterfall, Jen asked Karen if she wanted to ride with her to the after party at Jen's sister's house. And Karen heard John on the phone getting directions from Jen a few minutes before they arrived. Why would Karen think they were not welcome after they just happily hung out with these people?
Oh my God.
So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house.
All right. It's okay. You can forget that Tom Webster was ever a person in the world now, because everything he's saying, irrelevant nonsense. But just the point of how it is that folks, once you get an idea in your mind, okay, Karen Read is guilty. And so then I go and I'm starting to look through like Masshole Mafia's page and I see all this stuff and I click on this garbage and this is what comes up. Well, then why would I think, of course, Karen Read is guilty? Because this jackass, who I can't imagine a person in the world would ever listen to, but he thinks he's, he knows he's got her dead to right, I guess. Oh my God. Patrick Crawford really interesting. By the way, y'all, I was Lexus tech specialist for 5.5 years. A 2022 Lexus 570 is loaded with safety features, including rear cross traffic alert and pedestrian detection. How's come no data on that? Yeah, Patrick, right? That is such an excellent point. And I think that was kind of my point too. Like, this tech stream data said there was no accident. I mean, that was like what DeSogra was saying on the stand. There was no accident. If Karen Reed had actually made contact with anything, wouldn't the car that is loaded with all of these features, isn't that what this tech stream data is for? Isn't it supposed to be to send information basically back to the dealership so that it can make, you know, corrections, or you can send it to, you know, whatever. If there's a malfunction or a misfire or something needs to be fixed on the car, you have all the data to be able to know what happened and how to fix it. So I think that's the idea in large part. And unless, however, of course, you're trying to put a story together and then you have an outcome you want, and you have to then, your job is to find information that fits that narrative. And that's kind of the whole point, right? If Karen Reed has to be guilty, well, then everything that you come into contact with, you have to find a way to make it fit, even if it doesn't. And that's what the Commonwealth's biggest problem all along has been. It's even like with the collusion with Karen Reed and Turtle Boy. It's like, guys, you can keep looking forever, but if something doesn't exist, that it doesn't exist. Like, no matter how much you look and no matter how many different, you know, phones you look through, bank records you look at, if there's no evidence of something happening, there's no evidence. But they just like couldn't accept that. It's craziness. And here's the biggest problem. I really believe, I went back. If you haven't done this too, I would strongly encourage you on your own time so that you can fast forward. Go look back at Kenneth Berkowitz's retirement party. It was a cable event, so the whole thing is recorded. Go look back and look at all of the people that show up to give a speech, you know, heartfelt remarks, how wonderful of a man he was, how much they loved partnering with him, how many different law enforcement agencies from around the East Coast, at the very least, federal, local, state, other states, Washington, New York, people from everywhere coming to basically pay their respects to this guy who's retiring. And it helps you start to kind of see the like larger structure of all of these different law enforcement people and how they might be connected together, including the master of ceremony, the district attorney, Michael Morrissey, who leads off the event. So it is helpful to have all these talking heads in context. You'll see the person that was the commissioner before Michael Cox, and you would see why it'll be very, very clear why Michael Cox is lying and why it is that he would lie or would have brought Ms. Dever into his office to begin with and sat her down and said, do the right thing. It's just very clear. It all kind of starts to come together in a very real way. So my commitment is the following. I'm going to find, as soon as I get off this video live stream, I'm going to go find a video that I could throw right in immediately into the show notes of the clip of Turtle Boy driving backwards. So you can see, if you haven't seen it, I want to make sure that I find that for you before I go to sleep tonight. And I will try to include that in next week's live, which I think is going to be Wednesday. I'm pretty sure. No reason it wouldn't be. Also, I want to announce we're going to be doing a live Zoom call-in show. We're going to try it. Something I wanted to do from the very beginning. That's how this all started. That was like my original idea before like a YouTube thing. I was like, all right, well, I want to do a call-in thing. And I don't remember what happened. It just kind of like evolved into something else very quickly. But so that's happening. More will be revealed on that. And there was something else. I don't remember what it was, but also we have the correct email now. So email me if there's anything that you want me to look at. If you have a suggestion about something that you want me to take a look at, I'm happy to, anytime, happy to hear it. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Beware of anything you see that has mass hole mafia or anybody of that ilk, nature, interest, because it's all garbage. And I'm not just saying that as a very biased person who knows that Karen Reed didn't kill John O'Keefe, but also just as an objective human being, as a finder of facts, as a person, a scientist who cares about truth above and beyond all else. Period. Capital T truth. That is what I care about, and will go to the ends of the earth to try to uncover, probably till the day I die, because that's just how I'm built. That's who I am. That is not what is going on over there in the anti-Karen Reed movement. So, with that, everybody, enjoy the rest of your very early Thursday morning. It's 1:05. You guys are like me. You got to get to sleep. I know I need to be told at my very old age still. Sam, you got to go to bed at some point. So, to everyone, I thank you so, so much, more than you'll ever know, for your time, your effort, your attention, your support. And I will see you all again, hopefully, on Wednesday next week. And until then, be on the lookout for definitely a Caitlin Albert analysis that will make your skin crawl a little bit, because she's an incredibly dishonest person, apparently. So that's awesome. And lots of other stuff in the works, but that's my next big one. And I think I'm going to finally release the Chris Albert. So be on the lookout for those, and I will see you guys next week. Everybody have a great night, morning, rest of your week. Until then.